What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Wednesday and welcome here to Series E Apex Legends. My name is Yeso. I will be your host today as we're kicking off a brand new season in Apex Legends, right? Series E, we're in the heart of Season 6 here. Nothing new on that front, but we got a brand new patch yesterday and a ton of changes, big sweeping moves across the meta, and we're looking forward to getting into all of the fun today. Tons of stuff to break down. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting new choices, strategies, and options for our players in the tournament today, and I'm looking forward to getting into all of that. Before we do so, though, of course, let's talk talk about what Series E is all about. Now, Series E is a professional esports open circuit that absolutely anyone can join across multiple different titles. We've, of course, got Multiverses, we've got Guilty Gear Strive, and you know it, Apex Legends. Now, the way it works, players and teams come out and they compete in our open qualifiers, and the best of the best make it into Series E. Now, what does that mean for them? Well, players will get the opportunity to sign a contract, get drafted by one of our partnered brands, earn a monthly salary, and compete weekly for points and prize money. In Apex Legends, it's every Wednesday night against some of the best pros from all across North America. So if you and your friends want to get in on the fun, have some further questions, make sure to head over to esportsarena.com today to check that out. Now, as we come back here into the studio, quick reminder, of course, new patch coming out, and a lot of players still either in London or traveling back, enjoying the time off. So we won't see the full slate of, TSM, the Guard, etc. here today. Gonna see some open teams, a good mix of pro and talented players here, but not gonna be the full slate that we are used to seeing on Pro Night. So just know that going out the front. But still, we'll see all of our Series E partnered squads here today. Now, as we take a look at what's new in Apex Legends here today with the Season 16 patch coming through, of course, the biggest conversation is going to be about the sweeping changes to the Legend meta, right? Reclassifying all of the Legends, everybody getting these extra class abilities, and how that is going to change things for teams. The way you're going to build Legend compositions will change. The abilities that you will have at your disposal will matter even more when you're talking about building these compositions, because you're always going to be missing at least 2, if not more, of these specific class abilities when you build a composition. And it's going to create a lot more interesting choices for these teams when they're looking to put together those combinations that fit their style the best. So I think there's going to be a very interesting conversation. We're going to get a very good look at the very least, some of the early leaders in the clubhouse in terms of what are the Legends that are coming to the forefront, what are some of the compositions maybe we can expect to see as competition continues, because of course Pro League qualifiers happened just over the weekend, but they all finished up prior to the patch, so we didn't get to see any of that competition. So today is some of the first official competition on the new patch, so we'll at the very least get some early answers on what some of our top players think about the current Legend meta, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. A couple of friends will be along for the ride today, Zephyr and Dia on the cast. They'll be bringing you all of the action through our 6 games today, and I imagine they'll have plenty of thoughts on what's going on with our Legend meta, so we'll hear from them all throughout the day. And of course, I'll be here to break things down in between, check out some replays, keep tabs on our leaderboard, and more. So look forward to that. But with 6 games ahead of us here tonight and plenty of Series E competition to come, let's not waste any further time and kick off another night here of Series E Apex Legends.
Exciting to watch. Almost big Matt Pickett vibes from back in early seasons of Series E. Now Slephon taking a lot of damage, and I mean,
The shots are starting to connect with what he does, and they're going down Sung, making the thing sang right there.
as he hopped back on with Nerf. Nerf looking like they want to close in another fight. Forsey with the shots, and goodbye to
On this doorway and those windows, and they should be able to fight it out. Meanwhile, Intel getting into another battle, clear way across the map. Intel
Mike
breaking.
and Knight are getting aggressive. They got the first knock. Actually, Z Davis once again with that charge rifle, but Bronzy.
No, Eccentric from above as well.
you see what Eccentric's up to. They're making the flank on down below to P1. Put down becoming 3 now. It's a 2-on-2 situation. Maybe a 2-on-1. It is a 2-on-1.
Everyone, welcome back to Series E. I have to start things off by saying Happy Valentine's Day to you, Zephyr. I know I missed you yesterday. I know you were busy, but I love you very much. We've also got a special guest because she's decided that she's quite needy. So everyone say hello to Shash because she decided that she wanted pets just as we're starting. But there's so much to talk about, Zephyr. New season kicked off yesterday. So much love is in the air. What are you loving the most about this new season?
Okay, you just gave me love overload in less than 30 seconds. From first off, a very nice statement. Happy Valentine's Day to you too, Dia. It's always a pleasure to be back with you. But the kitty is so cute, and okay. Season 16. I'm in absolute love with, let's say, TDM. TDM has been an absolute blast. I think I already completed the badge for winning like 10 TDM and whatever and all that. It's all I've been doing. It's one of the most fun things that they have added into the new patch, and that's like just one of the many incredible instances for this new season of Revelry.
You know, it's funny because I think that as odd and tangential as it is to appreciate a limited time game mode for its impact into a BR, it really does revitalize a lot of the passion that we get in our scene. As seasons go on, a lot of our pro competitors, and even those here at Series E, do experience a lot of burnout in their day-to-day, and the fact that we've started a new season, a lot of things have changed, and people are getting a new look at the game. I know that people have been talking about this a lot recently, but we've hit peak Apex numbers for the first time in a very long time today, and it's really nice to see a lot of that love for the game returning as we do prepare for the new competitive season. And I've got to say, it has kicked off a lot of innovation. I want to take a look, if we've got it, there we go, at the format that we're going to be running tonight. If this is your first time jumping into Series E, we're going to be playing 6 games over the course of today, 3 on World's Edge, 3 on Stormpoint, and the points breakdown is, as usual, 12 points for first, 9 points for second, 7 for third, and then, Zephyr, 1 per what?
Why you say it like that? 1 point per elimination, as Dia always delegates over to me.
It's my favorite way of picking them up, and I gotta say, I just like hearing you say it. We do have prizing going up for today's games as well, as is always on our pro night here at Series E. And I want to take a look at who is in the running for that prizing, because Yeso alluded to it earlier. We may not have the TSMs, the NRGs, but we actually have some pretty recent entries into the professional scene. I'm looking over at Team Intel with their great performance, just barely making the cut, but making the cut nonetheless into Pro League, right alongside Tech and Sorcerers that you can find in the third column as new entries into the ALGS professional level of Apex Legends.
Oh, man. It's just this last weekend. You were talking about it before we just got into the matches today. It's a major milestone for some of these players, and both of us taking direct, we'll say direct. I don't know. We were part of this process, this history, kind of in the making.
We witnessed it.
Yeah, we witnessed it. We casted it. We were the last step before some of these players will be heartily in Pro League, probably there for quite some time, and if some of them find major success, they'll probably never see us again, which I think is a bit sad, but hey, success is success. You can't hope for more.
Yeah, we'll get to catch them around here. Now, we've also got some recent Pro League qualifiers joining us from across the ocean. I want to give a warm welcome to 2R1C that we'll be playing today. Zephyr, these are your people.
Oh, they can be your people, they can be chat's people, they can be everyone's people, especially as we make our way through this game. Now, I do want to highlight the last time that I was on Esports Arena, just a few weeks ago here, this was a roster that was competing. Obviously, Arca and Nuchako were just starting to get a feel for each other once again, reuniting. But now, I think this is officially one of the first times that we're seeing them with the roster that they will be going into this next Pro League split, competing alongside Jerovic.
And they looked really good over the course of this weekend. They played something like, what was it? Did they play in the 16 games on Saturday? I think they might have. I'm going to say that they played at least 16 games. We could have hit even the 24 mark.
No, they did not. They were winners bracket aficionados, and so they played zone like kings, made their way to finals, struggled during finals, came through in the last 3 games to clutch up that Pro League spot.
So played 17 games over the course of the weekend.
There you go.
It's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. Now, I'm also taking a look over at MPS, for example. That's a team that I'd expected quite a bit from in the past season, and alongside SZN, have a lot of pop-off potential. I think that for those two teams in particular, the beginning of the season is going to be really impactful.
It's interesting because there's a lot of... It's hard to say what teams will fare the best. We talk about flexibility and those who can adapt and figure out, what's the most powerful thing, but at the end of the day, it's far too early. We're only the first day after release, since all these new mechanics have finally birthed themselves here in Revelry. I mean, there's no guarantee we see anyone find their dominance, best foot forward. It might just come back straight to the best 3v3 fighters come out on top today.
Very well, Mike. We're going to jump into the first game of the newest season here, Season 16. Its debut in Series E, and we're on board with Mike and Ike heading on over to their premier drop spot in Climatizer. Interestingly enough, they're going to be running the Catalyst, something that wasn't entirely out of meta even for them as we approach the end of last season, and with Catalyst's now ability to scan for the next zone, this pick is going to be increasing in power. Meanwhile, over with Aegon by AOC, out here in Overlook, they're in a fight already.
Aegon AOC obviously contested down here in, it looks like Overlook for Orioles. Will find their way to safety above, but that's not before ZZ and Rut does find nonetheless. For Force What here, the last remaining member will host themselves into the corner, and even with that, Mozambique can't find the last shot necessary. Instead, it's Team Revenge who comes out on top.
Just barely as well. Manky-Poo able to clutch it up for the team, but that is our first squad eliminated. Team Revenge should be able to set up real quickly, as they've actually got a zone coming on over to them, so their loot path doesn't have to take them that much further out of where they initially landed, but it will mean they have that much less access to loot, and so initially, their goal does have to be to set up as quick as possible, get over into that northwestern side of Overlook before coming on back, and hopefully setting up around this beacon so that Carlon so that Manky-Poo can continue to farm those scans.
It's going to give us some headaches here trying to remember which legends do what at this given point. It's rewriting what we know at its core here. But granted, we do get to take a look more decisively at that next zone, and it's something that pulls more directly towards that fragment area. I'm looking explicitly toward where you kind of see Razor right now, towards that western end on the train line, and even towards that broken building you can see just off towards their east.
We've got plenty of people showing up in Fragment, and time to do so as well for SZ, and they're caught a little bit on that rotation, coming on into Landslide, and with just Hakulo having to take the 1v1 behind the knockdown shield, not able to clutch it up, now it's down to Kalane, who again, being able to use these teammates' knockdown shields effectively, does not have the portal to get his whole team out to safety and is going to have to hightail it out of there, leaving the rest of his team to die, while 2R1C are eliminated in the meantime.
Well, that's the team that they were facing. Come from the sky, or my apologies, landslide area. It's American Doble who have come through here to finish the job. Notably, Tyler picking it up with the wingman there. This is a super roster if I have ever seen it. Mixed members from the EMEA region of Kansas City Pioneers, Vex Esports, or Vex Gaming, as well as the Fire Beavers, Oiron there. That's nasty.
And you can hear Nasky howling with laughter already. That's the way he plays the game. A lot of go-get-him energy. And this time back on the Caustic, an EMEA favorite for a very long time as well. American Dolbe is, I guess, what I'm going to go with, just like we did earlier. Should be having a really good time, unlike Sung, who jumping right on over into the top of Fragment, gets instantly taken down and is unrecoverable by the team, not able to get out of there. Meanwhile, Intel rolling up on this as well, and space in Fragment is coming at a premium. Let's go with Icy as he jumps on down, gets that sick pump with the PK, and Team Sung are out.
A beautiful representation from Intel there to start things off, but it isn't over. Jet with a quick shield swap, even though they lose the entirety of the health. Haven't seen this in a while. Look at this rift coming through from Flinzar to give the safety necessary to Jet to find that health potentially back. This third party is just above Intel right now. You have to hope Icy doing a good job defending this.
Yeah, at the moment, with Intel's actual effective retreat into this building, they should be able to put up a pretty nice defense. We know they've got the Gibraltar as well as Caustic, who as you've seen in plenty of times gone by, can really put up a big defenses, these beefy lads, waiting to use the bubble even, as they're not even punished for rotating over into this building and may be able to claim the second or third floor all to themselves.
Now, they might have not gotten the read that this is taking place here, because the minute they show up, it is Nasky who finds that first drop. Icy to look for a response there, won't quite find the damage necessary on that PK. Instead, it is time to run here. One of the biggest weaknesses of this kind of composition is you are big boys, you are slow boys, and even with the dome down, I can't imagine it bodes well for Intel.
And it's a big signal to everyone in Fragment. This is exactly where you are. This temporary safety that Intel have afforded themselves is absolutely, oh my god, nothing but Icy's PK shots. They are the world. That's a quick knock and a finish onto High Pain, and it gives Intel the chance to stabilize, get themselves some more loot, and maybe even a shot at the end game from down here.
Now, notably, they are going to be losing out on Jet on the interior of that building, and that's not something that many teams are going to give away. So your zone control, your defensive setup for this late game is no longer available. Yes, you have the hard resets, the aggressive tendencies, the control, that defensive bombardment that we just saw from Gibraltar. But in terms of getting the job done, it's really up to Flintzar to get his butt in there, potentially recover, and find any further legs here. Discount Preds, though, they step up to potentially take this fight, but granted, it is a 2v2.
And it's a scary prospect, especially when you've already lost your Valkyrie on a push that you can only imagine should have worked for you. Now, we won't get to talk about this too often, but we should point out that with the Loba on your team and the new support characteristics that you get, you also don't have to commit to get that banner and instead craft it up with the banner crafter that we already see in Fragment right in the middle of market. That's a potential way to recover for Discount Preds. Meanwhile, Kraken's Lair setting themselves up in Geyser. SZN got taken out, and I believe Razor did as well. We may be seeing Kraken's Lair fall soon afterwards, but being able to lock the doors right now gave them a good angle until they stepped too far forward into Luminosity Gaming. Jaguaris sends it in, no shields, but plenty of confidence, and we're looking to see another team eliminated.
Immediately picked up there. It's Yanya from behind that finishes the job here. Kraken's Lair takes us down to 14. And I spy with my little eye. I know they love to play this one as aggressive as it gets when we talk about Esports Arena many times in recent weeks. But that Pathfinder, also a pickup for this roster and something that will hopefully benefit them later on. For now, though, MZD stuck in the interior of, well, just the back end of Harvester. Actually, the Gatekeeper still working with that Seer on none other than Zach Mazer.
Wait, these guys are actually kind of ranked farmers, too. Designful, Chaotic, Zach. This is a stacked team to get together just in time for Esports Arena. Zach with a really nice spray onto the top of this building should be able to clutch this for the team. The Chaotic Munch is on the inside. The team separated, and evidently it doesn't matter because that EVA 8 takes absolutely no prisoners, leave no witnesses, is demolished.
It's a shame their friends from the south are immediately picked up, and MZD, while they do drop one, given the fact that they are so far out on edge here, they are allowed to pick up this reset with ease. And I'll be honest, I'm still trying to decipher each of these individual combinations. There is no rhyme or reason, Dia. No one has put together a specific thing that is apparently at the height. Everyone just trying maybe their flavor of the month, maybe their preference, what worked for them in the past, some of their favorites. The fact, though, that I'm seeing Wraith pretty much as a heavy pick on all these teams tell me that the extended portal buff is something huge for most of these teams.
It's just so nice. I know that they nerfed the duration on the portal, but especially when you're playing at the professional level, you're all making one rotation pretty quickly anyway. And so many of these players made their names on Legends like Wraith, got their first shot really in what was essentially a glorified ranked system back in Season 1. And now we're going to see them shine once again. Stanky on the Mondo flank, taking out Team Inferno. And I love what I'm seeing out of Tyson right now. Their recovery into this season is looking real good, despite the fact that they are one of our few teams running the recently nerfed Seer.
And the thing with Seer is, It's tough. Is Seer as oppressive necessary on all those rosters like we saw in previous iterations of Apex? No. But is Seer still one of the few legends in the game to give you that kind of minor wall hack, readability, that available nature to have extra information, even though timing's been nerfed and the general spread of your passive has been nerfed? Yeah. I mean, he's still a very, very good pickup for teams. I just think it is definitely weaker. And there's a reason to start. I mean, don't get me wrong. Let's talk about it like this. These teams have had 7 to 8 months to understand where Seer is at and understand that concept in itself. Right now is the time to play with other things.
It certainly seems like that's the direction that a team like Drug Free is taking, using the crypto and combining that with the Wattson for double scans, both on enemies and on where the ring is going. Crypto specifically is going to get a lot of value and may already even be picking some up in this season, spotting out a Wraith, 2 Wraiths even, right below, as Drug Free do face encroachments on their territory. We got a care package, that must add something nice, because you know that with Wraith's new passive, she is able to pick up on what those care packages actually contain.
Now, notably over here on the north side of this zone, we do have one of those aforementioned scams that is available to Sorcerer at any given point. Notably, I believe he's holding on to it, though, for this endgame. Once things do begin to tighten up and you can just send the drone out there towards the north side and pick up that information and see where the remaining, we'll say, 8 to 7 squads are with complete certainty.
I like your estimation of how many squads will be left as well, because we haven't talked about it too much, but the pace of this lobby has been pretty quick. It's what we expect from Esports Arena, especially as we kick off the new season. A lot of experimentation, and with very high caliber players as well, does lead them to sort of limit test what these new legends can do and what it actually means to be playing your best game in Season 16. Right now, Drug Free's position has let them be pretty confident. Will it let them do so until the end game? As right now, we are getting a zone that's pulling increasingly towards the center of Fragment, but is unlikely to actually end on streamer building.
No, it usually pulls either towards this west side of the bridge, or yes, sometimes where you do currently see Drug Free at this moment. But the fact that it does leave such a heavy notion towards that southwest side kind of spells the opposite, kind of against the norm here. Meanwhile, Mike and Ike pushing into the Drug Free building finally after what was this extension from that south side, are allowed to have the first floor completely. And this is something we don't get to talk about often. MJ already here on the low ground.
I really like the Catalyst pickup as well. Great coverage defensively, and it'll allow them to set up really easily. Mike and Ike now have a position that they can play out of, albeit with one door missing. Their position is a little bit more tenuous. You're seeing a lot of Nemesis picked up as well, guys, and this is a gun that was added with this patch. A lot of people generally concur that it is quite powerful, and for very good reason, but Mike and Ike going to be trying their best to make use out of this mid-range weapon from what will ultimately be pretty close-range fights.
And I will say, unless that Nemesis is ramped up to full, we'll say the 3-stack completion there on its charge, technically other SMGs right off of the rip, things like the R9, who just got a wonderful buff, those will beat you out in terms of TTK. It's just, don't get me wrong, the Nemesis is still, I would say, one of the best weapons in the game currently. But in terms of short-range gameplay, when you're on those direct 1v1s there, at least for the initial excursion, when you are hot right immediately on that direct catalyst to the fight, it will lose out to some SMGs.
It's the nice thing that everybody's, sort of been adapting to, right? It is this very powerful mid-game weapon, but what are its actual weaknesses? And I'm glad that you get to point some of them out before we see it in action, as this next zone is going to close. As you predicted, it's not exactly pulling us over towards the streamer building, but instead pulling just that bit further out to the west. But very unorthodox ring for a lot of these guys, as even the ring algorithm has been undergoing some changes over the course of the past couple weeks, and what a lot of professional players here in Series E have started to take for granted now becomes something they've got to suddenly adapt to, and that's where Valkyrie, even with her more recent changes, not being able to scan those rings, is still going to bring a lot of value, being able to sort of save your game in a way.
Drug Free, they've obviously saw this ring fairly early on, and they want to make their impressions almost immediately, but they're losing out. Remember, it's American Doble who have been holding this building all early game, taking out any team that steps up here. I mean, can you blame them? This is one of the best pro league entities that we see here. I know a lot of y'all are fans of North America, but these are some powerhouse players from across the sea.
They've come here with no intention of playing nice either. This isn't a sweet visit where we all get to walk away going, wasn't it cool that some of our European friends dropped by? This is we're never inviting them over again. American Dolbe really hyping it up on their first day in the new season. Well, they may be trying out some new things. They're very aggressive, and specifically with things like the Caustic and Maggie, you've got this excellent zone control of the Caustic paired with the ability to take space aggressively on Maggie and then move yourself about relatively freely with this Wraith. It's nice to see that they're making all of the best uses of their aggression, but even they will have to continue moving up further north. Not on this next ring, but as it closes afterwards.
And that's when we're going to see the Wraith come into play. Something that I honestly haven't got a taste of since the last embers of Year 2 began to fade from that Legend pick. Meanwhile, though, Team Revenge, this is that squad we just saw redeploying here. Ordnance is down, trying to block this one out. Gatekeeping, and that RE-45, while it still remains in the package, finds its damage. But from behind, Team Revenge is picked up.
Nice.
It's a full wipe onto Tyson, but you can't imagine that Luminosity is going to let this one slide.
No, they pick up that kill real quickly, and now having cleared this entire eastern side of the ring, have a moment to reset before pushing out further. Yanya going to be able to provide cover fire onto Jaguars as he's trapped behind a rock, trapped by a Maggie drill of all things. Luminosity, though they've played, I'll say, the slower game when compared to, say, American Dolbe, still have a really good angle on the upcoming few minutes. Even taking away this height, scouting out the train cart is empty and making the best use of their time.
Whoa.
Jaguars does go down, though, and it's to Zach on the other end. It is a charge rifle, so the opportunity to save does come in. Everybody's nice and fine inside of this train cart, and directly underneath it, MPS are taking their reset as well.
This is my big question. Where is MZD, though, in this regard? Obviously, they have clear angles on the train line. Maybe not MPS, as that's clearly potentially in the face of American Doble. But just above, you can see that Jaguares does officially fall here. MZD, they have this lovely position in the entirety of zone, notably one that is taken from Designful, coming through the back end of Harvester, setting up that portal, and getting this whole roster on their best foot forward. They are going to be the squad to beat in terms of endgame positioning right now.
Mike and Ike being taken out, unfortunately, does push us down to 7, and even as Luminosity drop, we're out to 5 squads left. MZD wreaking havoc with the Thermite that Chaotic has just thrown in there. Aren't going to push up onto MPS, but will continue to apply pressure with a nasty riot drill to follow this up. I love the position that Chaotic Munch has now, a little bit more vertical cover, and as we already know, they've got this entire southern part of the zone to themselves, so it's going to be all about covering their angles on these approaches like those from the low ground out of this train cart.
Discount Preds will fall in the face of, once again, American Doble from the interior of our streamer building. Meanwhile, for MPS, they've already begun their movement, and it's notably that Wraith portal that puts them on their best foot. Shy here is immediately spotted out as GS Bird will be on their way home, and the standard 3v3 between American Doble and MPS has already taken place. The third party.
Here they come. MPS clutched up a quick second, but their likelihood of getting first is drizzling away in front of our eyes. MZD, with no worries at all, slide down the mountain and wrecking ball their way into a game one win in the first game of Season 16 here at Series E.
First game of Season 16, first game of the night, and one of the weirdest zones that we've had the pleasure to see here. Not a stereotypical ending by any means out towards that fragment side. It is not often that cuts that hard over towards the south across the train line in that fragment area there, and you have to give props where it's due. MZD had that read particularly early on, played it slow from Harvester, and were able to survive that exchange from that choke into that power position.
I'm really liking the look out of game one. This is, as we called out initially, clearly very talented squad. You've seen all these players individually around Pro League, and getting to see them play together outside of a ranked farm stream is really nice. Now, this first game played a lot like what they're used to as a trio, sitting back, collecting damage, and watching the kills fall in. As we continue on in today's games, I'm hoping the MZD get a chance to replicate their success, but I'm expecting that some of our partnered squads will be able to put up a bit more of a fight as we adapt to the incoming meta. For a little bit more on that, to see whether he agrees with me or not, I want to hear from ESO.
I would say I agree. I'm a big Zach Mazer fan. Have gotten to talk with him a handful of times. You know, certainly a player that has been around Series E a lot over the last couple of years. Of course, the presence that he and his teams have had in Pro League over the last couple of years has to be talked about. But seeing Zach alongside Designful and Chaotic here, really interesting combo, and definitely one where, you know, right on its face, you're like, oh, yep, I agree. Rank farmer stream, but these three can throw down, and they looked good in that first game, and just good use of high ground and the lines of sight that they had to apply a lot of initial pressure there to MPS, and just great push and finish from them to grab the win. A nice 8 kills gives them a solid 20-point performance to kick it off, and that's a great way to start off Mike and Ike week here at Series E Apex Legends. A pretty clean win from the MZD squad. Let's take a look. Okay, we'll just keep looking at that game. Of course, one of the interesting things has been, as I talked about at the top of the show, a lot of the choices that teams are making around Legends, right? Because not only did we get the big moves in terms of the reclassification of a lot of Legends and the big new class structure with all of those new abilities, but we also got some changes to specific Legends, right? Seer got some significant nerfs. We got nice buffs for both Wraith and Mirage getting some love, and we saw the Wraith coming out there, right? The double length on her portal really creates a lot of opportunities, and it's going to be interesting to see how long people continue to play the Seer, because the nerfs are pretty significant. Of course, still provides your teams a bunch of information, but I'm very curious when teams start to push more into the Bloodhound, and if maybe that is the route that teams want to take for those Recon Legends. But here we are with our first game leaderboard here. MZD there with 20 points, but American Dolbe there, 26 points. A lot of frags there in our first game of the day, and while they don't get the win, they showed up in the kill column, putting up 26 points to kick things off. Of course, MPS rounds out that top three with 13 points on our Mobile One leaderboard. Let's check out, though, our Mobile One high performance moment here for our first game of the day, and it's the finish here from MZD. Chaotic Butch here, just laying down all the damage, and they just, again, apply so much pressure here, right? MPS is able to get in, clean up some kills here, of course, as Chaotic Butch comes over, wipes out Shy, just ratting here under the stairs there to clean up that GS Bird squad, but MPS goes in, they wipe out American Dolbe, and then after that, they don't have really significant enough time to reset. You also have that late zone pressure right on your back, ticking for damage on those health bars, and it's just a quick push here from MZD. They don't miss their shot, and an easy cleanup. So they do all of the initial work. MPS is forced into a very tough position, and MZD cleans up just the way you should. So big win from them. Solid performance to start the day, and very curious to see how things shake out as the day continues, right? Dolbe having a really great first game. A lot of that EMEA talent on that squad. They'll be a team to keep an eye on as today continues. We're going to a quick break right now. When we come back, Game 2, Dia and Zephyr will have all the action for you when we return.
Tyson boneless buffalo bites have that tasty kick of flavor, so they're perfect for any get-together. If there are any left when your guests arrive. Tyson Anytizers Chicken. More kicks of flavor, more smiling snackers, more to love. Tyson.
Welcome back, folks. As we are prepared for game number 2 of the evening, we'll be making our return onto World's Edge. And it's a World's Edge that we had a great start to. MZD, it's difficult for me not to say MZD, did really crush it, but you pointed out while we were listening to Yeso talk about this, Zephyr, the biggest story of last game. You want to enlighten everyone?
Sure. American Doble, obviously at the top of that leaderboard there, and what you may see as 26 points, I'll see it more directly as they finished third. That means the placement elicited only 7 of those points. That was a 19-kill game for that roster. Reminder, 19 divided by 3 comes out to roughly 6 and more of our squads that were in that lobby. It was a massive start for the team that didn't even win, didn't even place second.
Yeah, if to think about it another way, there are 19 squads that aren't American Dolbe jumping into that. They effectively killed one person from each of them. Over the course of that game, the lobby was just crushed by this force that was running through everyone. And I mean, I really enjoyed watching them. We talked about their read on the meta. Ultimately, the end game, having to jump down to the low ground, did bite them a little bit in terms of that big finale. But I really thought that they gave us something special here. It was also in a very specific zone, though. Think about the way that Fragment plays out and the way that building specifically plays out compared to a lot of other areas, and I find myself wondering, will they be able to do the same thing if we pop on over to, say, Thermal Station, or even into a place like Lava Siphon?
It's interesting because I think right now everyone is so tempered with how they're trying to approach this new meta. So for American Double, a team that has 3 excellent fraggers between Oirin, who carries 5 Beavers, Nasky alongside the KCP roster, and Tyler from Vexed, a disgusting controller player in his own regard. In terms of pure fighting prowess, they win. They just straight up win probably any of the giant 3v3s that they throw themselves into here. So some of that extra information or those new compositions or maybe new strategies that everyone's trying to figure out, it doesn't matter in the face of American Double. They just get the job done.
Yeah, it is really impressive to see them doing it, and they've clearly influenced the upcoming game as well. A lot of caustic just got picked up, even by squads that weren't running it last. Knowing that you've now got both the ring scan and the incredible amount of damage that you can do with that gas available to you. Teams are trying this out, and I, for one, am very happy to see Mamba jumping back on this pick. That's going to be a really big pickup, as Mamba back in the Series E, I want to say Season 5, was it? Season 4, perhaps, really was crushing everyone with the caustic.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that we reintroduced so many of these picks back into Apex Legends, because at the end of the day, you know, Wraith has held presence within Apex for such a long period of time, and it was only recently within this 8-month span that teams actually saw themselves move away from this Legend pickup. There just wasn't enough to offer in terms of a competitive sense. With the minor changes, and you know, whatever, it is like a reunion for so many of these teams to have this pickup back on their rosters.
It's quite nice to watch perhaps a return to form for a lot of players as well.
Nature is healing.
Everybody gets, what's happening?
Nature is healing. Apex nature is healing. We've done away with Seer. Nature's healing.
I like it. We'll see. We're seeing, yes, a lot of these players perhaps return to form as they rediscover their identities, but they're going to have to do so a little further up to the north than we had last time. It is going to be very different POIs as well, Epicenter and Climatizer, as well as a touch of Survey inside of Zone 2, and while you can hold down a lot of individual positions, it's nothing like what you can do in Fragment, and again, I look forward to seeing a very different sort of game play out as we're already getting, because there have been no 50-50s this game's effort.
No, not at all here. For Climatizer, though, I do want to point out that it's likely to be a direct pull, but after last game, Dia, why not this one finish, Center Spire Epicenter? If they've tweaked things this aggressively, who knows where it may end up. But obviously, North seems to be the play for most of these rosters. We check in with Aegon on AAC, and it does look like for this team, they did spot out what might be the start of a fleeting 3v3, but they have lost the position of this opposing roster. You'll see Rut to start taking the aggressive moves forward. Oh yeah, that also that confuses me too, by the way.
Yeah, the planes flying overhead, it really scared me yesterday.
The first
time
I
will say, Aegon do have the Seer as well, so something they can use to keep track of everyone as they sort of run themselves through Lava Siphon. I believe they've just seen the disengage, so confirmed visually on top of all of this. But Aegon's movement up to the north won't take too much of a hit, as they're pretty dead set on making their way up through this bridge and potentially the choke point right ahead as well. It's a nice pace to set for yourself, especially considering that Aegon didn't grab any points in the first game of the day, so making sure that you're in zone and hopefully in a choke to be able to pick up at least a few kills as you make your way into ring will be exactly what they need to recover after what was a disappointing game one.
We'll have to take a look as it goes on here. Obviously for them, they're already in that initial zone, but I can see on your kill feed that things have already started here. Team Inferno losing out on actually Cryptic to none other than American Dolbe here. They found that first knock and will potentially look for more as they chase through this choke here.
Give it up. If American Dolbe have already taken one of you, they're going to be taking the other two. It's time to run and see what you can do as a duo, because you're going to have more impact on the game than you will on this trio of doom. Now, as they take a minute to set themselves up, making their way into a northern zone, American Dolbe are going to have a whole lot of priority on other teams that are making slower rotations. Teams like Aegon, who are even getting caught up to by squads that started even further to the south. Their break that they've taken on the rotation up towards that choke point that I mentioned has cost them the high ground and now trapped them inside this building with two different squads looking down at them.
Ooh, minor scan coming out there on Rut there, but we can see this already going to be a utilization of into that phase. It's none other than Luminosity who's reeling themselves up from behind. This is not one of those rosters that you want to see yourself taking immediately here. Nice tracking, get a beautiful line of sight with that Nemesis in play there from Nizzle. See if they can potentially find the knocks to follow. I love the fact that he's already going to try to start gatekeeping this. Sends a forced message that this rotation's going to go for that eastern side, which allows Yanya to take a much further extension on this rotation directly towards Geyser.
You don't get high ground on Luminosity Gaming, not when they've got the first move. Instead, it's they who will be looking down at Geyser, completely ignoring other squads that could be in the area, because Luminosity, well, they've got the confidence to even full send it forward with Neasel jumping on and even using the zip line, which, may I remind everybody, he moves faster on now to cut them off at the pass. Neasel going on this aggressive play, needs to survive, but has already done so much work when it comes to the pressure that he's outputting.
Mind you, Yanya and Jaguares have just barely started to catch up, coming through from the Geyser. It is a different speed that Pathfinder allows right now. And this is the strength of the Nemesis, the cross-map success, the AR that provides hundreds to 200 meters away, a slot from behind with the EVA 8, and it is a Neasel world here today.
Tried to catch him with the Seer scan. Well, surprise, surprise, Neasel's already on top of you. Out comes that EVA, and down is going to go another team. Jaguares finishing off Aegon by AOC in spectacular fashion.
I have to say, that was like, if you wanted your dose of Season 16, that is the prime thing to watch there. From the Pathfinder buff to the aggressive momentum to the Nemesis coming out to shred through that roster. That's a highlight reel that shows you where the strength currently exists in Apex.
It looked like it was part of that like preseason montage that you get when you load into the game. Watching how Luminosity were able to do that, Neasel again specifically, we're giving you a lot of love here. Very well deserved. Tyson unfortunately won't be getting as much screen time as they're already out of the game, taken out by CLG, who, as I mentioned earlier, have Mamba on this Caustic, having set up in what is previously a position that we would have expected to be more central zone. I do find myself to doubting a little bit that we'll be going here in the later stages of the game, but they've still got opportunity to move with the bridges that are right next door.
Now, in granted nature, there is still always that opportunity for things to cut ever so slightly higher to the north, where you see those next pings going out. So the fact that they're here early, cleaning out their backside, and then now looking to set up where you currently see Shy is something that I think will provide for these endgames. Remember, it has been CLG in these recent few weeks that have found their success in Esports Arena. I believe it was in week 6 they finished second. Week 7 they finished first. Right, last week I'm a little bit more lost upon, but in terms of the history, this is one of those rosters to watch out, even if Game 1 was not the best.
Got to agree. A terrifying team. And Team Sung could be as well. I'll say a little bit less history here outside of Sung, who, very scary player, has been on a lot of consistent rosters. Normally plays anchor for the team, perhaps that secondary fragger as they've got to take more fights. But Team Sung, a squad fully based around this player, isn't something that we've gotten to see too often, whether it be at the Tier 1 or Tier 2 level. And sitting right now with a 0-point start to the day and a ring that is ever further pulling away from Epicenter, I can only imagine that they're sweating a bit, because this game isn't going to get any easier, and Sung has got a lot to prove.
Good level of control here in Survey Camp, obviously matching the buildings as of right now. This is clearly not going to be something that elicits success going into the late game, but if they can pick up potentially this direct 3v3 as it might be a little bit more exclusive, could be the best move forward. You can see Drippy already trying to make something happen, potentially a portal kidnap with that additional length, or just what might be this next setup for them in the future.
One of the really nice things about this portal is that it lets Sung put pressure out by laying barrels down next to the door, cutting off a lot of exits, and he's already actually taken the portal over, used that to gain control of the RV and just take space. against the squad in front of them. Team Sung, slowly but surely, are making their names a little bit better known in this lobby, but Drippy almost goes down, and it forces them to take a step back. They're hemorrhaging meds. They don't have enough pressure out of this low ground, and if they don't find a way to make use of this Nox gas grenade soon, I don't think Team Sung are going to be getting too many places with the squad in front of them.
There it is, thrown in towards the right side here to start things off. We have the dramatic information of knowing the fact that they're not there, and that's a huge whiff in terms of what damage could have been utilized as an opening. For Sung, it's going to be hopefully something to potentially retreat, pull back, and maybe look at in an alternative way, because in terms of resources and access to this fight, ain't got much. Meanwhile, for CLG, we talked about more northern positions. They just wiped out Intel, but now to defend against what will be this third party here, it is just an extreme rip of damage there from that Nemesis on Nano that prevents that drop from coming through.
Nano lives through my nightmare. Sitting in a corner with a shield bat, watching somebody walk through the door, look directly at you. He gets away with that positioning, and not only that, but almost kills somebody in the process. CLG, they've got this great setup, and though it may not be on the highest of high grounds, man, is it effective right now. Well, Team Sung, struggling to now get out of their building, have been Uno reverse carded completely, and we're seeing the duality of this caustic as it traps Team Sung in a corner, and now, with just one member left, is leading to their demise. The Havoc does a lot, but not enough, and leave no witnesses. Strike back in game 2.
That's how you have to do it there, and Zilach gives a beautiful representation of how to play this one out, but from afar, 2R1C is finding their appropriate knocks there. Yuako could just drop this wrecking ball at any given moment. It's the go button for this roster. Hiraka playing the fuse, notably, so in terms of zone pressure, building destruction, this is the comp to work with. That wrecking ball! No. Oh no! It bounces off of Jerovic, but they're still finding the damage where it counts. That drill's forcing some movement here. A rotation inning with the car starting to find these initial knocks.
Great tracking from Jerovic as well. The positioning keeping him really safe and leave no witnesses. They are eradicated. This building now completely in the control of 2R1C, and a very well-deserved push from them. MPS is starting to rock up on this fight and may not expect the level of control that they are going to encounter, but with Pow Pow now sitting on the low ground, all blue shields, they've got to take this fight by a pretty wide margin, not having that extra health to work with. Well, 2R1C seem pretty darn intent on disengaging.
This given point here, they want to pull back towards this explicit high ground where they can have a little bit more of an advantage in terms of leveling control, but more so to get this rotation going. 25 seconds until zone closes, and they need to start setting their sight lines on where exactly they're going to be presenting themselves next. They have a lot of pressure in this type of composition to usurp positions. Problem does come down to explicitly finding where that next position is going to be. This building right here on the L shape, not exactly one that is available, and it seems like their sight lines are more set back towards once they came gatekeeping.
It's got to be the play, especially because they're not even in the ring yet. If you were positioned past this building, I'd be worried about shots from Climatizer, but given where 2R1C are currently sat, makes total sense that they're instead focused on just keeping squads out, making sure that you've got to take the suboptimal low ground path into Epicenter, and they're even thinking about laying in some shots over there and not taking the bridge for just what it's worth, as playing the bridge can be quite dangerous at times. Luminosity taken onto the other one and sending it into Epicenter are hunting down some extra kills. They've already got one full thirst at least onto this squad, and Yanya popping down into the zone is going to be able to lay out a bit more damage. Niesel backing him up with this Nemesis, just crushes people. Madness goes down. Discount Preds, they're eliminated already, and Luminosity continue to take space and likely are going to continue to collect kills if Niesel can just, there we go, crest this icicle, and PS are shredded through.
Mind you, the immediate setup into the zip line for an instant recovery quite literally might have just saved him there. I know obviously the damage doesn't come through in full, and he doesn't really look like he was in that bad of a situation, but imagine no escape to utilize with that ultimate. You're not allowed to get towards this bridge as quickly as we just saw.
Pathfinder's kind of sick right now. I'm really liking the Lookout of Luminosity, and while they're the only team to be running it, man, oh man, does it look fun as they're able to clean up kills. Now, 2R1C, they've got that fuse that you mentioned as well, so another squad to be running a unique legend, and sitting up on this bridge, what I've nicknamed the Bridge of Death, they do have to play perfectly to get out of here unscathed. Ping onto the building is really smart, but with no way to cross that invulnerably by using either a Wraith or even a Valkyrie or Pathfinder. 2R1C's troubles are far from over. Jerovic almost going down as he tries to make the rotation over to his team, and Luminosity are right behind them, spotting Jerovic on that low ground. They are on the chase.
Now for this roster, we're going to see if they can maybe present themselves with some sort of cover on that low ground. For now, Luminosity technically are in no better position. Yes, they are a more aggressive, successful 3v3 fighting team, but they themselves still do not have a position within zone either, and that's even why you see them slow up on what could have been their assault against 2-1-RC. Instead, it's this extended rift to potentially put them right on the cusp of zone here.
Wait, this is actually really... This is
wow,
a really awesome
insane.
portal. That buff goes crazy. I haven't been playing Wraith myself. Yeah, this is sick. Look at the ground you're able to cover, and the perfect spot into this next zone as well. Now, it was pulled a little bit early, so they don't have the time to sit outside and wait for this ring to close. And Ring, actually, really causing them some serious problems here, as that early rotate does almost take them down, being shot at from outside of the zone. A stray bullet catches Yanya, but now you've got a little bit of cover to work with, as the knockdown shield will provide just a touch. Jaguares manages to escape onto the inside, but an over position, an early rotate from Luminosity costs them 2 members and likely their shot at this game.
Yeah, notably, it's here from this back end that CLG still has this fantastic spot ahead here. Now, they can see that final resisting member of Luminosity. I don't know if they'll full send this. There is a team on the interior that can respond with damage in tow here, but for now, it seems like they are the winners.
Playing the outside of the fence line. Just a nice thing to do for CLG. They're not under a lot of pressure from really anyone. The one squad that could cause them problems would be anyone who tries to play in the top of this building. And right now, we have just seen somebody take that space. CLG fear nothing. Jump in, take out Luminosity, and now have the cover from above. And even that background to retreat to. But do need to cover even more ground, perhaps using that Wraith portal from Nano to make their way up to the north. Again, this will be a fight for timing, but there is a world where they can play underneath Lava Siphon just off to the southern side.
Oh, and look what I see. Look at who's in position there. Our winners from game 1. The best spot into the zone. The truck where it can sometimes finish just out in front of. MZD already setting themselves up aptly here. Now, obviously, they do have some minor responses from these buildings across us, but with zone closure taking place, everyone is likely to shore up more directly on the Climatizer POI than take it to this specific cart. And, MZD, well, they're just going to keep racking up kills as a result.
Yeah, Zach playing real well. Again, picked up that charge rifle, and if you know pro players, absolutely terrifying, and there are some just make their name on weapons like this. Revenge go down, SZN taken out again. A big surprise for me to start off the season. Expected them to be farming, and yet they've been put down early twice in a row. Can they make the recovery, or will NZD just be steamrolling today's games? For the moment, sitting in this RV, it is going to be a game of patience, as the next minute will bring the game to them. But until that minute starts closing, until these squads are forced to fight each other, everyone's focused on MZD.
MZD here, though, they still have such a defensive position to play with. Not a defensive comp, though, to work with. I can imagine this specific setup in the hands of some of these other caustic rosters that we have been seeing would just be absolutely nasty. Instead, I worry things like the fuse that you see from 2R1C, the plethora of Mad Maggies that are clearly in play here. That's going to be a lot of damage that MZD are going to have to deal with. And notably, you can already see it. There's that Nox Gas Grenade designed for this last remaining member to take to the low ground of all places just to barely survive, and instead picked up in completion.
But 2R1C, who went on the push there, also don't get to keep the RV. They get cleared out by CLG, and Tech now coming up with the Sorcerers. May be able to use this momentum as well. I may have spoken too soon, though. Watching Tech be absolutely melted. CLG had their focus in the right place and were able to take out yet another squad. They're not even playing on the inside of this RV, wiping out the squads that try and take it. They're sitting around the outside and waiting for the overzealous pushes to come in. Now, finally, with this zone starting to close, they grab a little bit of that loot and are going to need to heal up and refocus as the mass exodus from Climatizer is beginning.
Notably, you can see American Dolbe still alive there, picking up those initial kills onto what is the full remnants of Impulse. Looks like Mike and Ike. I mean, no surprise to see him here. You play into their zone, they should be left alive. They're the full other three-person roster that still exists within this lobby. And as they shore up to this fence line, I do worry about these minor rats, Tyler especially, Nasky, who might come out from behind. Levy damage that gives CLG the win.
Oh, MJ's down, though, and Mike and Ike surely can't recover from this. That is a really nice wrecking ball into the corner, and as Drug-Free go out, we should be seeing yet another squad bite the dust as well. There go American Dolbe. The jump over onto Mike and Ike takes CLG the win in game number 2.
Hey, we talked about it. CLG, they come out on top. It wasn't the best start to the night here, but this roster has found so much success in recent weeks of Esports Arena that, I mean, I can't imagine them doing anything but winning.
It's yet another W that we get to see fly by us, not picked up by American Dolbe, but yet that includes them in the top 3. And when it comes to in-game performance, you got to put respect on them. But CLG also really stepping it up. What a performance. We talked about it going into this game, but Mamba on that Caustic is just something different. And Shy comes out of nowhere with some incredible damage. Is this guy playing solo queue, or is he here in Series Z Season 6?
That is an insane start for them, and I say start because game 1 was nothing to write home about in terms of the points that they put up there. I believe a 31-point game off of their win. The only sad part of that entire exchange is that we never quite got to see how CLG transitioned from such a southward position of Climatizer around the east into the God spot at the very end.
My theory is that it was just one Wraith portal.
One Wraith portal, you're right. That's all you need.
Took him all the way there. It's feeling like that in Season 16, but for a little bit more on the CLG win on MZD and how close they got, and perhaps a teaser as to how Mike and Ike got so ridiculously close. I cannot wait from here to Yeso as to how Game 2 broke down.
CLG with a huge W, but I don't know if it's as big of a W as I got here with my friends at Mike and I cooking me up fresh shirt, got some nice comfy socks from them. I'm going to be eating Mike and Ike until I turn as green as those packages, and I'm happy about it. So big thank you to my friends over at Mike and Ike here for hooking me up here during Mike and Ike week. CLG with the big W there in game 2. Of course, MZD were in the mix in the late game, but got pushed out of cover there and taken out as Designful just burns on the low ground, and CLG picks up the win. Let's take a look, though, at our Mobile One high performance moment here from game number 2. And we'll take a look a little bit earlier. A nice little ambush here from 2R1C, playing around this Caustic and all of the damage that these traps are just laying down. And they're able to easily clean up 2 players from Leave No Witness trying to escape. this very stinky spot, but 2R1C with just a beautiful ambush, great flank, laying down the damage. The Caustic getting so much value here, and they're perfectly positioned to clean up this fight, and that's Leave No Witness getting taken out of that game. We took a look at our Mobile One high performance moment, but let's take a look at the Mobile One leaderboard, because that's where things are getting really interesting, right? American Dolbe, with their big first game, jumped out to that lead despite not grabbing the win. MZD ended up in second. This game, they only pick up 5 points, and that means with American Dolbe having another solid performance, as well as CLG grabbing the win, things changing big time on the leaderboard. Believe that is a bit of a bug. There we go. Shout out to the people in production. It is CLG there, up at the top. 36 points, a huge performance there in game 2. And we have very quickly set up that big race at the top of the standings. CLG, American Dolbe, and MZD duking it out. LG, Mike and Ike in the mix. MPS as well, right? Close, but they've got to start making up ground quickly. We've got one more game left on World's Edge before we head over to Storm Point, and we've seen historically here, it is very difficult to close those gaps in the back half of the day, right? These teams don't typically slow down significantly enough on Storm Point, so you really have to put yourself within arm's reach by the end of the first half. Otherwise, you just have too deep of a hole to dig out of. So keep an eye on Mike and Ike, LG, MPS to have a big performance here in Game 3, because that is their opportunity to get themselves in a position to make a run for top 2 in the back half of the day. Big win from CLG. Hats off to them. When we come back, Zephyr and Dia will get you ready for game number 3, and we'll keep things rolling here at Mike and Ike Week on Series E Apex Legends.
Getting the Nizel clip just before we got back was a real nice way to remind us of what awaits as we jump into the third game of the night. It has been a little unhinged as we get into these later games. However, I also want to say that Game 2 already looked way easier to predict than game number 1.
Yeah.
I really liked that control of the cart that we got. CLG played things really well, and a partnered squad making it into those top 3 was exactly what I had predicted and hoped for as we got into the later stages of the day.
I mean, I would have been particularly upset if we didn't see Mike and Ike make it to the end of Acclimatizer Zone. Nobody can play that region like them, and even if they didn't come quite as close in terms of the KP or even their transition into the endgame, it was still remarkable that they are able to put up that kind of pressure. The question is, can they do it once things inevitably begin to shift here on our last moments of World's Edge?
I thought it was funny because you see teams when the zones pull over to them play things very differently, and a lot of Climatizer teams will try and play out of Climatizer when they recognize the zone is coming to them, and I thought it was quite entertaining that CLG didn't go with that approach and instead shifted themselves off to the south, right off the bridge, and moved in from there. It's a very unorthodox approach, as, again, that high ground tends to be really valuable, and CLG went, no, we want to control small spaces and then move ourselves out from there.
Yeah, it was from building to building for CLG there. We saw them contest Cart into the next building ahead of Spire on south side, into the top northeastern building, and then finally behind Cart at the very, very end. And I have to just attribute it directly to the compositions that we're starting to see here. Zone control seems to be back and in full force, and it's not the Watson that we've been used to. Caustic definitely seems to be taking the helm of World's Edge. It's always held its power within the map, and there are still to this day teams that pick it up when it finds purpose for more zone-oriented teams. But this time around, it's starting to be one of those more undeniable things.
It's funny to see it happen so quickly as well, because the only thing that changed about Caustic is that he's now able to scan zone. That's it. And
yeah,
Watson, I mean, same thing happened there, but she was becoming more and more powerful, it seemed, as last split went on. More teams prioritizing that ability to take away the nades that people would toss in at you, evidently filling a very similar role. And yet, as we've transitioned in, like you're talking about, that Caustic has picked up so much priority, and I really am wondering what the big differentiator between these two things is for most pro teams, because looking from the outside in, I can only theorize as to why we're seeing so much more Caustic, but in two Legends that got the same change going into this season, it is really weird to see this big uptick into Stinky Daddy.
I will say there's two things that might kind of contribute to why we are seeing that here in tonight's Series E. Remember, this is one of the first tournaments for anyone at home right now trying to figure out Season 16, for anybody across pretty much every region. We literally have so many regions here tonight playing in Series E. South America, North America, and EMEA. The thing is, Watson found its prevalence in the heart of late year 2 into the beginnings of year 3, all the way up into our playoffs here, popularized in APAC North as a direct response to some of the strengths over there, bled into due to international play, and then became one of the best defensive legends. But outside of that, other regions defensively were always working with the Caustic. I can bring up names like Skittle Cakes and the like prior in year 2. It was Caustic that was usually played. So once again, as I say, our return to healing, nature has found its way. People are being reunited to the legends they love.
I feel kind of small brain now that I've thought of this. You tell me if I'm crazy or not.
Got it.
I think we're seeing more Caustic right now because scan meta is worse and the visual disruption is better as a result.
You know, it's crazy because I'm totally on board with that, but then I look at Bangalore and I'm like, why not? You know? If scan meta is so bad right now, wouldn't that be the full-fledged best opportunity for Bangalore? And yet, not a single person in this lobby.
Oh, damn. That is actually the perfect lobby for you to say that, Zephyr, because there is exactly one Bangalore in this lobby. But outside of that one team, you are correct. We've only got the one. Then Aegon by AOC, starting things off, are going to be running that slightly slower smoke with the Caustic and sort of rerunning their game from last time. Surprisingly, though, having to deal with this early 50-50 to give them an additional 3 points, a much-needed 3 points.
Yeah, for Aegon by AOC. Remember, it was last time around that we saw them chased by Luminosity all the way into Geyser as they just would not let them up. A relenting force there. And finally, now, with the 3KP will be able to actually transition, hopefully naturally, out of the Siphon area. But I'll tell you what, Dia, we talked about a shift from the norm here. Maybe potentially Mike and Ike maybe having to make larger sweeping moves. It's not going to be directly within Climatizer, but we are headed back towards the northeast.
The craziest thing about today is that we're playing out of 3 northern zones. I mean, I tell you what, we can see legend shift ups, we can see gun changes, seeing 3 northern, fragment or further, northern zones in a row on World's Edge, just unheard of. You gotta get at least 1 thermal station in there, maybe a Lava Siphon, Lava City, but no. Epicenter, and perhaps even dead-on Epicenter, is the draw. It's not often that you see a zone sort of jump in like that, and wow, finding 2 hammer points in 1 game. Wizard Coin's kind of popping off. This really is Mike and Ike week.
This really is Mozambique season, by the way. Just want to point that out. The hammer points are back, and the Mozambique, who has only incurred everything. Oh, wow, even just, yeah, pick it up. If you find another Mozambique, you'll be on top. Either way, for them, definitely in a position of power, and it's hopefully something they can transition, hopefully to those northern ridge lines, just outside of where Climatizer is. For Team Sung and crew, they're on the north side, but towards the west, competing in Skyhook right now. They've got a squad just above them, and pushing upwards seems to be a bit of an issue. Don't get to see the Bloodhound very often.
Taking this fight, absolutely not fun. PK whiff on the first peak, make it the second as well. But Team Sung do have that second floor that keeps them relatively safe. Nice peek from Dripply. Make sure that they take out an additional 2, and this initial push onto Team Sung has gone south in no time. That's going to be to clean up Discount Preds, taken down before the first ring close, and we're out to 18 teams left.
18 teams down here, and for Sung and them, they're more than happy to pick up the KP. Potentially, we're going to be seeing 17 soon here. Looks like, oh, it's the remnants of American Doble, one of our teams that have only placed in the top 3 recently here. It's a loss on the Caustic for now, for them to escape likely towards that northern side, but can't imagine much more. I saw you chalk in the Rockafall. That's 2R1C. That's it.
Oh my god. Oh no. That is also something that I wouldn't have predicted. They 2R1C have had slower games. Another hammer point. What is happening right now? The 2R1C have had games that were perhaps a little more difficult for them than I would have anticipated, and some of that can be attributed to the fact that they don't play against these teams almost ever. However, still, all things considered, for a team that just made Pro League, I hesitate to say that I wasn't expecting more.
CLG here are winners from last game. Once again, setting themselves up towards this eastern side. Now, obviously, have not transitioned out of Epicenter yet. Looking to see if they can pick up anybody on this low. Notice how they don't put themselves directly in that POI. For Intel, though, hosting this particular position is going to give them their safety for what I can only assume is Zone 3 and further here. So for now, CLG might begin to start carrying themselves towards those further rotations.
Certainly could. Intel sitting dead center. Love this spot, and with the fuse, imagine the chaos that you can create. They've got the Wraith portal for if they ever need to jump down. That'll be on a relatively available as we get later into the game. It's not absolutely terrible for them, despite the slightly longer time that you've got to wait, but Luminosity roll it up as well. This is an approach from the south side, playing that edge that we saw them do last game, and hey, Niesel in front. This is how it goes.
All right. Niesel with the chase, a Wraith portal that puts this squad far and away from where they need to go. Notably, Jaguar is still playing that Seer right alongside them, does give them that information that they might need to track down this team, but, I mean, they are gone already. This portal was on the complete off end here, and even as open as it is, for Tyson, they've escaped deep into Frag West at this point.
Thank God we saw them get out in time as well, because double whites up against the way Luminosity have been playing recently, that's just not the move. Even here, I'd be afraid that somebody would rain fire down upon me from behind, and Tyson's rotation in does have to make the best use of the buildings. I'd like to see them hold up in Fragment for a little while, perhaps pushing themselves into Survey or a corner of Epicenter, but safety has to be the priority until they can guarantee that there's a better angle of approach for them.
Tyson with the small recovery that they do find. You can see from our mini-map that Luminosity are pushing directly into Harvester. Might be where our next fight is taking place, but notably in that kill feed, we see the last moments of Mike and Ike. Once again, a northern pull here, and they are not able to survive this time around.
Surprising with Drug Free being able to pop up and take away some of their POI. The move down for Drug Free has clearly not been as fun. That fight that you talked about towards the southern end of this ring is popping off right now. We're going to jump in with it. Luminosity getting a little held out of ring here, but this is by choice, as there is parts of Harvester that are available for them. Preferring this angle of approach. Nizel has that zip line if they get a single knock, and it is going to be that aggressive approach that Luminosity are looking for. I believe it was a Wraith Portal down onto the low ground right in front of them. Nizel going to get out before he gets flanked, and even jumping on up to the high ground. Designful is going to miss out on the opportunity to capitalize on that Pathfinder. Well spotted and well defended from Nizel.
Have to say, for Nizel there, it's one of the few opportunities that we do get to see the strengths of Pathfinder. Once again, the expedient rotation away from pressure there allows him to find his safety. And even with that zipline, a comfortable tool for Pathfinders right now, because at least in this current moment, teams are not as trained regarding that speed and how they can transition along that zip. It is not something that they have mastered as of yet. I can promise you, though, the longer this goes, there's no way Pathfinders are going to be able to find their success on a line like that. Pros can and will track you.
Yeah, matter of time, matter of adaptation. One of the big things that is underestimated is just how much time impacts your gameplay. Whether you be one of the worst mechanical players in the world, you spend enough time just playing the game, and you'll get the hang of things eventually. When you're talking about people who are as comfortable and as talented as pro players, it'll take a mere few days for them to be able to track Pathfinders almost perfectly. Well, Aegon by AOC set up on top of this building. The tracking doesn't have to be on point, but their defense absolutely must be, as they do not have a whole lot of HP to chew through, and even with this caustic, any push onto them could very well end this squad.
Team Sung picked up there from the opposite end of our zone as of right now. Aegon by AOC. We are still trying to see how they might approach this. As of right now, they don't have to. With 33 seconds on that next zone close, potentially better off watching frag, etc. But for Tyson, they've actually moved completely away. They're not even playing in the building across. Meanwhile, Team Inferno is third-partied.
Jump in from Tyson towards these buildings that should get them further into zone. Not completely unexpected. MZD rotating over through Skyhook are going to be tanking a little bit of the next zone, but you got to imagine it's for the KP. Out goes the shot from Designful, but it doesn't find a knock. An instant rotation back in as they decide that chasing into zone, not so much worth it. They do have the Wrecking Ball to speed up their rotation just a little bit and can rest easy that this isn't going to be a banner that gets picked back up. CLG putting up a defense over by Climatizer are looking out on this bottom floor. Nano and Shy can collaborate on an angle right here, and a sick spray from Shy still doesn't find that knock, but the drill just might. Asura actually going down to the shots from Mamba, and Shy now unleashed as he gets to jump out knowing that his back is clear. And there's even a kill back here for him to pick up.
A full wipe there onto Asura justifies what might be these next pushes forward, but CLG do notably slow things up for now. Obviously, all in a little bit of a recoup here before they potentially maybe make their next moves. Obviously, we look at that zone, and it is still catering towards that western side, leaves a large portion of Survey Camp, and most notably, this ridge that you see currently held by Styx, Mankey, and Carlon Fam. And they have to be careful because that definitely seems like the hot spot to potentially be taken away.
Yeah, you got to imagine that it's where zone is closing. Yeah, you'd have to guess. I wouldn't risk it at this point because things are ever changing here in Apex Legends. But the bet is nice, and the fact that we see that hype prioritized and taken is good for this squad. For MPS, perhaps leaving a little bit to be desired. Their rotation out towards this RV does cost Madness his life, and Kodagami able to pick up that kill while Tyson hunt for their next victim. Cody actually getting that purple as well, so Tyson slowly accumulating a little bit more sticking power as we get later into this game. Their move over towards Epicenter will have to be one that prioritizes that low ground. Oh my god, what are you doing, Pow Pow? What are you doing?
Pow Pow cut off there, leaves one remaining member for MPS to survive, and from behind the knockdown shields, it's a very nice fence of the Wattson that you weren't expecting to see here today, and it actually allows MPS to not only survive, but also find that initial knock, potentially a period of recovery. Meanwhile, outside of this zone, all the way on the western MZD still on the recovery period from their rotation all the way from Harvester, defending from height here. I love this angle with the Prowler that Zach has found, which is followed up by Much on that first knock.
Now, I would not count on getting to push up into the Caustic Gas and the Arc Stars, and let's not forget the fact that we have some of the most talented players in the game gatekeeping you from the high ground. Aegon completely wiped out now as MZD retake the height and have the opportunity to get themselves into the zone. Jump tower right next door, Designful booking it out of there as they choose to take the rotation instead through Survey Camp. MZD will still retain the high ground against any teams that they come up against.
Whew. It's a solid position for now in terms of that kind of gatekeeping nature we just saw from this roster. But, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the western side is pretty much completely cleared out at this given point. The rest of your competition lays ahead in the interior of this zone, and for MZD, I mean, the big problem for them is their next move forward is going to be encompassing that, we'll say, Survey Camp area in the southern end, which is particularly open. Teams are going to have good sight lines on that.
I want to find out, actually, about that western side that you were talking about when we... Oh, my lord. When we get the chance.
Wow.
Let's take a look at that map. Jesus Christ, Nizel.
Not often that you get to see a shot like that from a distance like this. For Nizel, it is... I mean, par for the course at this point. The man has been on fire in Series E in recent weeks right now. Turning heads, obviously, back towards that epicenter area. Will catch the tail end of Sorcerer and Asura for now, but set their sights back towards Climatizer.
It's funny because the Luminosity Gaming that's doing well right now, even though you look at it and you say, well, yeah, it's Luminosity. They did really well this past split. Totally different playstyle they're whipping out in these games. This is a much more aggressive, edge-oriented play that we're seeing from LG, and it's off-brand when we consider that they were the squad running Gibraltar when it was off-meta just months ago. MZD holding around the outside of Epicenter are stereotypically and, as always, aggressive. But remember, we talked about the unpredictability of that zone. It's catching a lot of teams off guard as they will need to move themselves up to the north and over by Survey Camp. MZD did just crush another squad underfoot, by the way. That's a goodbye to Tyson that we are unfortunately saying what seems like too early, but we're into the top 11 and we are wasting no time.
For MZD, once again, it is another roster to continue putting themselves forward in terms of their points, but it's not something that will be assumed without the attention as well. Razor already extending themselves down towards the southern side. You do see how they have a portal back actually towards the Spire itself. It's likely where they were directly coming from just moments before here.
I like their spot for the moment. They do have to keep an eye on their backs, where we know that MZD will be approaching from. That is going to be their biggest problem. These small carts will provide cover, if only a little bit of it, but the visual clutter that you can provide with Caustic may just be the difference between Razor living and dying. Unfortunately for them, MZD have already spotted them out. Out go those smokes to defend just a little bit more, but it won't save you from MZD through a Seer ult. Without that being destroyed, you are going to be eating a lot of damage, and the successful scan from Zach might spell the end of yet another squad. Designful jumps straight in there, and MZD are all over you. What do you even do against this?
About nothing there, but there is a response found nonetheless. Razor will be finished off as this revive is stuck onto Mazer for now. Luckily, it doesn't seem like there's a squad nearby to finish the job. Instead, we tune in with Luminosity, a team that has slowly worked their way forward from bridge. Nizel once again with this wingman finding major cracks and the knocks to follow here. Yanya on that first foot forward with the flatline will find the full wipe and finish onto Team Revenge.
Just ludicrous amounts of damage from the LG squad, whether it be with this wingman or the car that was just shredding people like they were cheese. LG have height now, plenty of space, but crucially, no Wraith portal to move them further into the zone, which as this gets more and more open is going to be a problem. I see that Pathfinder zipline though, and I'm wondering whether Luminosity can get away with a move that takes them onto height in this end zone.
It's tough to say. You lose out on Survey Camp here, and really looking at that next zone, it seems to be so hard in the open there. Might be able to play this just next ridge right ahead of that balloon, but for now, they want to pick up extra kills. A Kraber in the hands of Nizel won't find its initial shots, but it is a dead giveaway to your position. That zipline dia, it's used as a moment of defense.
How on earth is he alive? Like, a strong breeze would have taken Nizel down, and yet he makes it back. Kraber still in hand, completely recoverable. Had Nizel gone down, Luminosity have no way of safely picking him up. They would have been playing this out as a duo, but that risk still pays off as they're able to retain that pressure, even laying a little bit more down onto the squad on the low ground. Will leave no witnesses. They're going to have to give a lot up right here. That is a full send into the open ground, and Brenna has nowhere to go as Shubi actually finds the knock with the Arcstar, and Luminosity start to roll up on this time, losing Nizel for good. Out goes the Arcstar. Another ordinance to follow this up, and leave no witnesses do go down. MPS going to follow them as well. Nizel getting back up, and it could be just in time, but this ring close is going to be deadly. They've got almost no opportunity to heal up, and Luminosity will have to choose how to approach this fight. Scaring on the low ground. Yanya does watch their entrances, but it looks like they're completely alone on this north side of the ring. They're approaching with some of the most cover possible, and a nasty head peek if they can get this balloon.
Once again, a fantastic scan there in that moment. We'll find Tech and Sorcerer in theirs. 3 teams remaining, and Nizel once again is down. We look back towards Intel and MZD. This is the go button, wrecking ball out, but immediately, the minute they pick behind that Ice Spire there, they find themselves caught. A portal from Designful might be the better rotation forward here instead of that Maggie.
MZD really want this, but Intel are pressuring them as well. Designful is going to pop out of the ring, and a great use of the Caustic Barrel from Flinzar is the only thing that keeps Intel safe. Unfortunately, this is coming at the cost of for both these squads of Luminosity getting back into the game. Luminosity, that may I remind you, has that nasty head peek, has height, and while Intel have a bunch of siege, well, they can keep MZD at bay, they have no tools to deal with LG in front of them.
No, not at all, especially from this particular angle. You have to hope that MZD go for the push if that portal is still extended in any way, but instead, they send it on to you. Intel now caught between 2 teams here will likely face their end as Luminosity comes in to clean it up.
And there's just nothing more that you can do. Height from Luminosity is too good, and the problem that MZD tried to solve earlier now is going to come back to haunt Intel, who kept them from it. It's just Jet alive, and it's just Luminosity picking up the win after a very scary endgame for them.
For Luminosity, there are final winners here on World's Edge there, and I'll give them credit where it is due. It was not as convincing as some of our prior Luminosity games there. Their transition towards that western side, just across the edge of Survey Camp, was as dire as it gets. So many times we tuned into them just on the back of a potential revive or a rotation that left them pretty much completely in the open there. At the very end, though, they were that team from the north that was able to, once the sight lines were diminished, able to play the balloon and the minor height that it gave.
And so much of that was predicated on the fact that they were able to clear out a lot of pressure in Survey Camp as well. Incredible job out of, I'm going to shout out especially Yanya right here, anchoring the team really well on this Wraith, got Nizel back into the game multiple times, was able to continually pressure with nades and just peeking out even on that top near the balloon to lay down a little bit of additional damage. LG really, truly dominated, and they did it in every sense of the word when it comes to getting actively involved in the game and rotating in aggressively, Zephyr.
It's definitely something that should spell great success for them on our leaderboard here. After that game, they finished off with 24 points. Maybe not as explosive as some of the earlier games we saw today, but something, especially as we approach Storm Point, will keep them at the top.
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to, but before we jump on over to Storm Point to wrap us up on World's Edge and see what we thought of that Luminosity win, let's hear from Yeso.
My thoughts are Luminosity did exactly what I asked them to do at the end of Game 2, talking about those teams that were outside of the top three, but within, a reasonable spot to try and make a run. And I talked about how it was important to get a lot of value out of this third game. You can't go into the second half of the day heading over to Storm Point trying to make up a lot of ground with those teams at the top of the leaderboard. You need to be right in the mix going into Game 4, because otherwise you're just running out of time and you're really hoping that those teams at the top are making significant mistakes, going out early and opening up opportunities, right? You need to create those opportunities for yourself in this first half and make sure that you're in a position to try and take a run for the top of the leaderboard right now. And LG did exactly that. 24 points, really solid win from them. I think a good point from DN's ever talking about some of the very strenuous positions that they were in and a couple of very tight spots, but LG doing a good job of getting out of those, coming out with great KP, and ultimately being in a position to win that game at the end. So well done to LG there, and we'll have to look at them on that Mobile One leaderboard here momentarily. Before we do that, though, our Mobile One high performance moment here. A little earlier on, let's take a look at MZD, which has been in the mix in all three end games here today. They get another top performance here, getting into the top three, and this just little sneak up catch of this player unawares at the bottom of this rock, easily able to clean up Team Razor here, while that one knock does come through there onto Zach Mazer. They're able to finish off the rest of the squad here, and this is some very important KP here for MZD, because while they did have that Game 1 win, they didn't get a ton of points in Game 2. Remember, it was just 5. They had fallen down to third place, and American Dolbier as well as CLG were opening up that gap at the top of the leaderboard, so MZD needed a nice recovery performance here, and that good KP and a top 3 finish has them in a good spot. So let's check where they stand, as well as LG after that victory on our Mobile One leaderboard. We'll pull it up for you right now. MZD jumping ahead just by a point, but it is a very close race here. 43 for MZD, 42 for LG. CLG at 41. A little more of a quiet game from them, but still putting 5 points on the board. And American Dolbe there, 4 points behind CLG there in fourth. Tech and Sorcerer rounding out the top 5. They've had a couple of late game appearances here. Not a ton of points, but 22 is an okay position to be in. But they're one of those teams that I was talking about where you're starting to run out of time. 3 games is not unreasonable, but when you're behind 4 teams that have at least a 15-point lead on you, you have to be getting as much value out of every single one of these games, because every misstep makes it that much more difficult to chase down a top spot. So MZD claiming that first place position, importantly for the first time today, right? Because you'll remember with American Dolebay's performance in Game 1, they actually had first place despite not getting the win. MZD now at the top of the leaderboard for the first time today, but they can't feel comfortable. LG and CLG right on their heels. We're headed to a break right now. When we come back, Mike and I week keeps rolling here at Series E Apex Legends. We've got Game 4 on Stormpoint when we return.
This is it, guys. We're about to jump into game number 4 of Series E Season 6. We're in Mike and Ike week, and World's Edge has not disappointed. Zephyr with Luminosity Gaming rounding us out on World's Edge with a win. We are about to transition onto Stormpoint, and I know that we talk about this quite frequently, but it's a very different beast on Stormpoint, and even last split, we were seeing very different legends picked up across the two maps. Do you think anything is changing, and if so, what?
Okay, so here's the thing. We've just saw Caustic in high prevalence on World's Edge. That's great. That's something that we know works for that map exclusively, especially with the way buildings finish out and endgames tend to dissolve here. For Stormpoint, that never quite seems to be that kind of way, I guess I'll say. I'm not going to sit here and theorize and tell you what these teams are about to pick. All I can tell you is that I do expect to see changes regarding the compositions because Caustic exclusively does find its weakness when we do approach this map.
That's certainly true. I am hoping that we get something hyper-mobile, and I'm also wondering, speaking of that hypermobility, whether it's something like the Valkyrie,
Okay,
because
here we
Valkyrie
go.
gets a lot of value
Here we
if
go.
you're a team landing up in the north. I suppose you're right. We are about to find out. I can probably take a breather now and see what happens. Pathfinder still, Caustic, a little bit of Valkyrie starting to pop in here as well, so I'm not entirely disappointed.
You know what it is?
Yes. What is it?
Bangalore! Lots more Bangalore to reapproach Stormpoint, which makes a ton of sense here when we start talking about this map exclusively in terms of defense and what it offers as a, we'll say, utility for these teams to find their rotations, to find their safety. You don't need setup in an end zone. You just need clearance.
That's certainly true. A lot of space can be bought by that Bangalore, the clearance, I suppose, that you talk about. I am curious as well who will be 50-50ing on this map, because we did get it on World's Edge, and it's very clear that unlike a lot of Pro Nights where we get repeat offenders, shall we say, these teams are still sorting out themselves who is going to be getting the short end of the stick, as it were. Luminosity do, as our winners from last game, get the honor of being the first team that we check in with, and over by Fish Farms. I can only hope that the zone does not pull over there, because it is a very different thing.
Sorry.
Oh, hey.
The Mirage Voyage confuses me.
Yeah, it's...
there are individuals here that are not Mirage. Instead, they are. I've been bamboozled.
Unfortunately, so have Discount Preds, thinking they could take the fight up against Team Revenge in Jurassic of all places. Not exactly the place that a lot of people would be thinking they'd be fighting for this season. Season 16, not particularly kind to Jurassic with the removal of a lot of the beacon spawn probability. But Team Revenge do still win out the fight, and hopefully you'll be able to make a quick rotation to really use this central position on the map to the fullest.
I'm curious to see how teams start to approach this, because something that I'm starting to notice here, especially as we kind of hop from team to team to team, some teams are definitely kind of reverting back to the norm, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of the 3 picks that I'm starting to see here is something that I could have seen in year 2. So definitely a lot more uneven footing. Speaking of uneven footing, it's something that Aegon finds themselves at right now. Horsewood almost finds the return necessary to even things up.
But on this Seer, you just don't have access to that height. We cross our fingers. We pray for the Skynade, but it does not connect. And as such, it's up to Kicks if Aegon actually want to take advantage of this. In the meantime, they're the ones on the low ground. And Kraken's lair run down in Cenote. They've picked up the full thirst. They've got priority on this rotation. And having access to that height that they got early really pays off in spades.
Kraken's lair here will take their time to pull away for now, but instead they find themselves in the heat of the battle just directly ahead. They spy out Kicks all the way actually over here on the western end, trying to pull something off for his team. Well, we'll try see if they can find a response to make sure that this doesn't become a 1v1 situation, and in the last minute with the G7 Scout finds the shots that count.
Aegon by AOC, taken down in the first minutes of this game. They've actually been playing pretty well today, all things considered, albeit their real problems have really been in the mid-game. But having fallen so early, again, a little problematic for them. I am sure, however, that with the, I'll say, discipline that our partnered squads have, that a lot of them are taking today in stride. Yes, it is a week that's just important as any other, but they're also certainly they also certainly have to be approaching it, even like Razor, who right now are set up in Barometer with the intention of figuring out what is good on this patch, what they're working with, how their playstyles have been impacted, and Razor, at the very least, with the nice position that they've got up here and the caustic to be able to make use of this ring scan, are going to have one of the better positions to sort out their own game plan from.
Razor here. I love this height, and it's something that, especially when we do make our way towards Barometer, exclusively provides towards these end games. Now, notably, I mean, I'm learning here still right now. Is there a ring scan here on the upper end of Barometer anymore? Because I don't think so. Right? This position we used to talk about its prevalence towards end games because you're able to scan from this height.
Can we get Washi to go check for me?
Washi, just turn your head 45 degrees.
Yeah, I admittedly have not actually popped into a game on Stormpoint yet. All of my games have been exclusively World's Edge so far, so we will get that sorted, and CLG, their own positioning, certainly turning out for the better, and Nano's going to be picked up, and evidently Mamba did not need the help. Drug-free. Get taken out right by this Prowler spawn point on our way into Swamps. Now, CLG, they do have a unique challenge before them, because as you rotate through the Swamps, your goal does have to be on controlling that height. Rotating out of there likely takes you through Antenna, and those sorts of moves can be quite difficult depending on who gets there first. You want to be doing it at a time that nobody else is and predicting how all the other squads are going to be moving.
Team Sung here, as we tune back out towards north of Barometer, will look for what seems to be the tail end of a fight here, just trying to control this particular, we'll say, choke for now. Obviously, this is likely to be for most teams that assume positions and rotations out from Jurassic Park and towards that checkpoint area, potentially where they position themselves, and especially in a meta where we're no longer seeing Valkyrie in high prevalence, walking it in is definitely going to be more evident.
It is, and this is part of the reason that I was hoping that we would get a little bit more Valkyrie, is because, especially on Stormpoint, it can be quite punishing to walk places. Zach actually punishing a little bit of that right now, although it's coming at the extra cost of tanking Zone on top of everything else. The revved up Rampage returning to floor loot still feels quite powerful, and MZD punishing every step of the way. Team Inferno go out in the meanwhile, and MZD, real confident over here by wall, have a crafter to grab even more meds on their way in, and now 3 KP to go with it.
MZD's much will find that final necessary heal to put them on their best foot forward here, but that KP is something that we've seen MZD excel at picking up across the entirety of this game here, and even more so on particularly Stormpoint, where the map is bigger and the edge is more decisive. Will we potentially see them find even more success here? Mike and Ike down towards our southern nut. We'll try to see if they can levy their own marginal amount of success, but you can see from this height on Barometer East how many of these teams are able to lay damage, and from below might be able to pressure as well. It's Luminosity with that first knock and more to follow suit. Lemmy Cook, man, I don't know who that may be, but he might be burning.
R99 still needing to be reloaded, and that's with the pressure applied off of this Maggie drill. Now, as one of the characters that does have access to verticality, we could fight here, but I think that this call to disengage certainly does feel a little bit more, shall we say, relatable, as Mike and Ike try and get away, redeploy. You've got barely any time to do it, but if you do want to try and make it, it's around this corner, up to the sky we go, uninterrupted it seems. Mike and Ike are able to make their escape from the building, but where on earth do you land? Even moving yourself out of the zone right now, you've got to walk back in.
Well, for Lemmy Cook, they'll try to see if they can get back to the kitchen for now. Obviously, we'll see if they can pick up some sort of recovery as this bleeds forward. It's only 1:40 towards that next zone close. For Leave No Witness, our South American friends do find themselves on the successful end of a fight, and that's not something I think I would say often in terms of this 3v3 situation. The low ground is currently contested, but they've got all the time in the world to recover, but no! Zilach, the first to fall.
Leave No Witnesses sliding around this corner, may still have it. G7 hip fire doesn't quite come through, but Panic is still somehow alive, leaving me to wonder what is happening on the inside of this building. Rena pops out, I'm sure expecting everything to be okay, and while Panic is still in this, the fight on the high ground is not getting any easier. Watson fences are being laid down. Rena gonna try and push up on this, but the res has gone off on the high ground, and Panic is just now trying to pick up Zilach. There he goes, grabbed up once more. You have your caustic on this low ground, but Leave No Witnesses are struggling to witness this fight themselves.
Whew. Tough to see how they might come out on top right now, but Titanson able to find this height, and that is where it is absolutely crucial now. Even if the choke is their next step forward here, Intel to find them. Meanwhile, it looks like MPS lasered by Luminosius. Finally, that necessary drop comes through. We were just waiting to see it from Tyson.
With the elimination of Leave No Witnesses, and we're likely going to see another squad drop soon, as surprisingly, American Dolbe are suffering in this game. They've swapped up the composition, as you called out, for something perhaps a little stronger, but 2R1C have absolutely taken advantage of it, dominating this building, and for now, holding down the southern end of this zone, what may very well be where we're going. We've got a minute left until we find out, as the zone will continue to close and then finally reveal where we're going next. But Mike and Ike returning to the scene of the crime? That's not something I expected.
They already have the banner. It just seems to be this is the position that allows for the most amount of safety. Granted, watching this take place right now and how just flexible these rotations are doesn't seem like the safest play here. I know we just talked about it, but I do want to reiterate with that southern zone, it's definitely going to be pulling towards not just those buildings that we saw 2R1C, but potentially the ones just ahead of them there, where you do see that bridge extend a little bit forward and you get that southern building just on the outskirts, or could potentially be in the complete open ground to the left of 2R1C here. It does look like the bridge that was picked up by American Dolbe is let go. You can see Tyler actually all the way out by Shipfall at this point.
Surprisingly, yeah, that pull down to the south. Wow. Shipfall perhaps a little too far south, but still, moving your way down is going to be, albeit just that little bit more important. We already talked about 2R1C, but man, do they feel good about this prediction right now. That can't feel too good. Wrecking Ball to face. It does keep MZD at bay, but Designful's gonna go in, committing for this fight. Knock already happening due to that nade, and MZD just relentless on the inside here. Don't even drop a member despite Chaotic going low. It is going to be a pickup elsewhere, as ultimately Caustic Gas is the thing that takes him down, but still, recovery should be pretty darn clean for them.
2R1C still holding out in this great position here. This is a team that when we talked about Pro League qualifiers this recent weekend, that put themselves hard into zone almost every single time, especially when it came to winner's bracket. While their footing was particularly lost in terms of their playstyle when we talked about specifically the finals, it is something that it does seem to be their main source of success here, and that Catalyst is definitely giving them what they need in terms of, well, holding out for now. Season could push into this, but are clearly unable to do so because of that specific legend pick, which is something that I particularly love. It's not a thing we get to see very often.
I'm really surprised, yeah, about this blood. Hakulo inside the building, so evidently at least useful for now to Season. does get them where they need to be, but Bullet L still needing to pop in here, does finally join up with the team and pushing up the staircase. Somehow they get the knock onto Ochako. That is through all of these rain of bullets, but SZN very well winning this. 2R1 Seer down, and now picking up your Bloodhound. You've got to do in time, but Tech and the Sorcerers are not letting you go. In they come, and through the smokes even, their confidence completely unhindered. One, he missed the person behind him, but it may have just been a knock, and Tech and Sorcerer do recover, ultimately being able to claim this building and the 6 loot boxes within.
MZD, this is this team, though, that's been on the outskirts, always playing towards the edge, and in a fantastic position to almost find that knock there. Zach Mazer with the potential laser of the Rampage. Doesn't quite find it when it counts. We'll be able to still find at least some access for Designful to potentially get those next kills there. But as he approaches the roof, it's already been taken away.
See what Designful does. We've seen the aggressive Wraith climb before, and here it goes again. Look at that. Prowler doesn't quite find the damage that he was hoping for, but I love, love, love the way that Designful is playing this right now. So aggressive on this Wraith, such confident, and it only befits a player of his caliber. MZD really taking these lobbies by storm, and for all these players individually, you know they're talented. We know how scary it can be out there in the Apex Legends world to get picked back up once you are sort of without a roster. This team making a really strong argument for themselves individually and as a trio because their communication and their teamwork has really been on point.
Fantastic from them, and it's something of a surprise to me. We obviously know the strengths, like you said, but the fact that they are able to define a playstyle around them is something that doesn't often take place. Now, granted, this is Series Z. We're not talking about the North American Pro Leagues right now, but it is still something warranted to know, especially given the fact that they do stay competitive so high at the top of that leaderboard. For Mike and Ike, a team that has been rife with strife here through some of our early games on World's Edge, are just barely keeping it together, but notably do get Wizard Coin back. The respawn did come through.
All right, well, I mean, it'll I want to say hopefully help them out in the late game. My concerns about Maggie here are that she is so aggressive that you really do feel like you need that third person to really make use of the pressure she can apply. Otherwise, very easy to repel just that duo push. But with American Dolbe above you, a duo themselves, we could see a really interesting clash of squads here. You watch one drop as neither team have scans, and especially not that Seer for the additional edge. And American Dolbe could very well be the ones going down. Not going to get too greedy for that loot. But my breath was held, Zephyr, because we were one misstep away from seeing a real execution down there.
I have to say, it seems these two squads especially would seem like the pairings to potentially find themselves in that chaotic moment there, even without Nasky in the mix. But granted, with this current position, they might be forced to fight nonetheless. We look at that further zone, and it does find itself as heavily south as we had expected here. So for now, Tyler and Oirin, well, at least give themselves maybe a moment of respite before what will inevitably be this drop down, or yes, the redeploy.
Drop down, drop up. They're changing levels, but American Dolbe do have limited areas to work with. I like the trigger pull here. Can you still play that gravity cannon is my big question. It's one of the few places that may be available, but I'm seeing a team underneath the bridge. They're landing out of the open right now. Where on earth do you go? On the outside of these rocks, right in between where the zone is going to be closing. These kids are getting aped. MZD are all over it.
I was going to say MZD on height with that double scan from Zach will easily find themselves in the best of situations to wipe American Dolbe here. And even still, though, while they don't pick up that final member, they have to defend both angles. Zach Mazer here cleanly focused towards 10 on the east. And even then, still able to find some major cracks and the knock to follow.
Razor stabilizing on the outside as Team Revenge go down. 6 squads left. Such a low number as we approach this end circle. But Razor simply can't let off the pressure. Nice swing on the inside. Burton trading off just in time, and that is the perfect way to end a squad. Mike and Ike are out, but MZD, again, are all over it. These guys simply do not quit and expect that swing onto the inside of the building because they know this is the last place that you can hide. Knockdown shield actually making this a little bit more complicated as the Wrecking Ball comes out to help them take this squad down. Razor fall. 3 teams left. MZD may just be doubling up on their wins because it doesn't look like anybody can hold a candle to them.
The problem for MZD is they've been playing Edge all of this time, which leads them into the worst position for this zone. You can see Yubin's position just across the bridge there. That's exactly where you want to be if you're going to be trying to pull off the win. I have to say, though, with 12 KP coming out of this game and Tech and Tyson ahead, I mean, I can't imagine any other further success for MZD.
Oh my god. Oh lord, the sightlines on this bridge are just brutal, and there is not a whole lot of ways for you to escape this. Designful holding down the other side as well with a really aggressive portal. Means that MZD just sandwich you in, but Cruson with an excellent beam on that R9 takes down Designful, forcing him to try and crawl back to that portal, back to a little bit of safety with MZD, but Tyson get taken out, and that means there are only 2 squads left. Designful's not back up, and it's up to the duo of MZD to clutch this before they get sent on by Tech and the Sorcerers. Out comes the beam. Designful full thirsted, and you know that it's a duo. Rounding the corner onto Zach. It's Chaotic against the world, and even with this gravity cannon right behind him, he's doing it! He's taking down 1, taking down 2! It's a 1v1 for Chaotic Munch, who with 50 HP has Tech on the bridge and a res that he can pull off. Nice job sticking the battery, prioritizing his own health and taking down whatever he can, but Tech is on the way. Full health already. It's a battle of the knockdown shield. Zone's closing in, 30 seconds left. Chaotic, can you do this? Can you clutch it up for MZD? Eva hits for 50, doesn't connect onto Tech. Shotgun in close range, so valuable. And out comes the drill, forcing Tech into close range. 301 for the spray. The AR nerf, it hit hard, but Tech hit harder. That's a win for Tech and the Sorcerers.
Tech and the Sorcerers coming out on top in a moment that could have gone potentially as horrific as any of us were imagining there. A win, a position, but my gosh, I want to talk about Tech and the Sorcerers, but it was such an MZD game through and through.
Yeah, I really liked the game plan from MZD. Again, very on brand for those players. Loved the way that they were making use of, especially Designful, on those flanks, on the aggressive pushes with the Wraith. It just means so much to be able to take an angle and force 3 players to look in a different direction, even if it's for just a few seconds. But I've got to give credit where it's due. Tech and the Sorcerers really clutching it up when they needed to. This was a team that played for deep zone, that did not interact really with the rest of the lobby, but being able to walk their way up from that bridge, cashed in on what people have, for this entire split, characterized as a rather risky playstyle. Sitting in zone means that sometimes you get 0-point games, even against the best of your ability. And with the low kills that Tech and the Sorcerers had, they needed this win. Their first one of the day means a lot to them, and it's perfectly executed against an MZD that were on a rampage. I want to hear a little bit more about this game, however, from our buddy backstage. Let's hear it from Yeso before we jump into Game 5.
4 games down, 2 more to go. It's been a very, honestly, interesting day front to back, and I'm really glad with the state we were at in terms of that Mobile One leaderboard going into the second half of the day. Already talked a little bit about it in my last segment with those teams closing the gap, right? LG with the big win, that 1-point gap between first and second, second and third, and those teams rounding out the top 5. with an opportunity to make moves, but running out of time. So I'm really looking forward to these last two games. Before we do that, though, before we check out that Mobile One leaderboard, let's look at our Mobile One high performance moment here from game number 4. First game on Stormpoint, and it's checking in with, surprise, surprise, MZD. Of course we're looking at MZD. Of course it's in a late game once again. They have been honestly allergic to dying outside of the top 5, it feels so far today. And it's Chaotic trying to make things happen here. EVA 8 shots are clean and getting so much damage. Is able to get the knock, trying to clutch things up, and ultimately gets 2 knocks there. So disgusting here from Chaotic, just doing work for the squad. Of course, you've got the red Evo, gives you that extra bit of cushion from the health bar perspective up against Tech and Sorcerer here. And, you know, you get Designful going down early and Zach getting down very early as well. Thankfully, Chaotic does get off the bat, but just such a good job sidestepping around these shots, getting so much value out of his life. So well played there. And that's a big reason why MZD has just been crushing it front to back today. And I'm really curious to see now how things shake out on that leaderboard overall as we take a look at our Mobile One leaderboard now, because MZD has been so consistent. It's why they took over first place now for the first time after game number 3. So let's look at where they stand, where everybody else is looking, because as I mentioned, you're starting to run out of time, and MZD now up to 65 points is huge. LG in an okay position with 2 games to go, but somebody's got to keep MZD out of the top 5. That's the problem here. When they open up that 14-point gap between themselves and LG, almost 20 points between themselves and CLG, it just means that now you need MZD to falter. You need them to trip up to open up that opportunity, because if MZD gets into another late game, they're just continuing to stack points. Tech and Sorcerer, though, with that finish there in game 4, are in a great position. They were one of those teams, kind of an outlier, just on the outside looking in, hoping to make a move here in game 4. They did just that. So well done to Tech and Sorcerer. Great finish there to game 4. And things are going to get fun here in the run to the finish. 2 more games to go. D and Zephyr have all that for you and more when we come back.
I'll be loading up, they wanna package this. Pray for peace, pacifist, I'm never old enough to give a promise.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are about to jump into game number 5 of Mike and Ike week here in Season 6 of Series E. Now, Zephyr, we've got 4 games down, but one crucially already given us that debut on Stormpoint. And Tech and the Sorcerers really brought it back with some crazy zone play, which was surprising to see after all of the chaos that we witnessed on Stormpoint. Going into the next game, I'm wondering what zone team will pick it up next, because I look at Tech and the Sorcerers and I say, that was really good. You guys are, in a way, wizards of the zone, but can you really do it twice in this economy of the zones?
It's tough to say if playing the zones is even where you want to be right now. It's clear to me that as we make our way through the rest of our lobbies, not just on Stormpoint coming off of that Game 4, but also World's Edge just a moment ago, that pretty much almost every single time, it's our edge teams in our mid game that are able to transition their success of kills on edge to a position within that end zone and then ramp towards that final end, round 6 or whatever. I mean,
we saw the risk, of playing zone as well. 2R1C, they were trying to play zone, and while they've had, I'll say, a difficult day, the fact that multiple squads paid attention to that building and just walked into it, those were squads that were coming from the edge, that were playing that more aggressive game. And, well, Tech and the Sorcerers slided on up the leaderboard, number 4 in the overall standings after 4 games. Really did work their magic, but jumping into the next game, operating out of Cascade, I do wonder where they will opt into next. I like that they are one of the squads that is running the Valkyrie, especially on a map like this. Getting that relocation, super important. I love Valkyrie on Stormpoint, and that's not a sentence that I thought I would be saying. The CLG taking their own fight, a 50-50, breaking out means that we're going to be whittling down the amount of squads that are left, and Sorcerer, unfortunately, means that Drug-Free are the first to lose a member.
Drug-Free already down 1 and now potentially 2 more, but a quick response from Asuras keeps things even, but you can't imagine the recovery of health will be taking place as immediately either. As Mamba arrives towards this second height here, Asuras assuredly falls almost instantly, and Shy begins to stick that revive here. There is one final member just on that other side there that Mamba immediately spots out. A drill doesn't find the damage that it needs, and instead, CLG are likely in the lead.
I do wonder whether you're just running for the hills at this point, knowing that you can't pick up your teammates, but taking a look at those highlights, it seems like we've tried to take the riskier approach, and you gotta respect it from Drug-Free. They do go down first, but they go down swinging, Zephyr, and in game number 5, perhaps that's just what you need, to stick by your teammates through thick and thin. Intel, they're sticking by something, sticking by the ground, I'll say, as they roll up to Cascade, where we know Tech and the Sorcerers dropped. I don't see anyone crafting, though, so Intel likely aren't going to come by any kills, at least this way.
And here, as we see Intel stalk the grass, searching for their wild prey ahead. Doesn't seem like they've come to nest upon the crafter for now.
Oh, but they do at this point there. Starting to extend that. You know for a fact that they're going to be on top of that in just a minute, but Icy might have given things away with the passive.
I want to call out, by the way, the production team here at Esports Arena. Take a look at the top left.
Yes,
we know what teams are here. That's awesome. I don't know if I'm blind or what, but I have not been looking at that, ladies and gents. We roll up to this game and I'm like, oh my god, we got some crazy witch tech going on here.
Well, I'll tell you that Witch Tech does tell us that Tech is nearby, and it also tells us that those shots that you're seeing aren't quite killing that roster anytime soon here. They've clearly seen what Intel is trying to provide in terms of this next fight forward, and instead, they decide to pull hard in a way.
Intel have got a lot of open territory they can use in this area. Tech and the Sorcerers don't seem intent on pushing them, instead playing a bit more defensively. Now we know they're looted up, but holding on to the high ground is going to be more valuable for them. Well, Aegon by AOC fighting it down on low ground do take out Kraken's Lair, an Uno reverse card from our first game on Stormpoint, where it was Aegon that ended up going down in this exact same engagement. Intel now getting pushed from the sides as they've actually managed to drop one, means that Tech and the Sorcerers have finally begun their engagement, and a perfectly placed Thermite lets them keep doing it with gusto. Flinzar burning, but outside of the building at least, watches Jet expire, and that's at the hands of Yuban, a third party perhaps incoming as Intel now take that high ground away and try and survive themselves.
Flinzar on this height. We'll just see if they can last. One is likely to be revived in just a moment here. And hopefully, knowing that you have one member completely to yourself, you take the time to recover, leave, and potentially find some other station far and away. But MPS is just as quickly here, just barely getting to the door in the nick of the time. They'll find the knock onto one, breaking down the fence line from the opposite side. Watson will be chased, but the door blocks for now.
Pow Pow not going to be able to come out of the door as a result of the generator. An ingenious use of that cooldown that actually saves Tech and the Sorcerers for now. Still having one member up with 17 squads left. May net them a placement point or two here or there, but I have to applaud the ingenuity on the escape. Presence of mind from those Sorcerers. And MPS satisfied with where they're at, the position that they have, and the loot that comes with it, are going to let them live to fight another day.
MPS here, obviously trying to see if they can sustain off of what might be those minor resources, but they have a clear position within zone, so likely not a worry ahead. And oh, it's Shooby-Dooby who does inevitably find that last member of Intel. Flinzar was still in the area trying to see if they could sneak away. Speaking of sneak away, we got a squad on the low ground here that Mike and Ike likely aren't going to catch up, especially with the grav cannon.
MJ picks up a little bit of damage, not as much as they might have expected, with not quite being able to land that ferrofluid on the ground, but nonetheless not likely to turn into kills anyways. CLG land on that low ground though, and all of a sudden find themselves in some trouble as they take their own fight. Does not appear to be going too well. Seer ult means that they're safe to at least res. CLG not out of the woods, not by a long shot, as now they've got to either decide between climbing back up, taking this fight, or disengaging onto the low ground. Mamba chooses violence, climbing up the fence with the R99 in hand, forces out that mobile shield, and is going to keep pressing, keep applying pressure. Mamba is frying right now, and a quick slide along the side takes down the average soap enjoyer and allows him to keep on moving forward.
Mamba's low, but that smoke is something that gives them safety here. Shy will fall, and this actually brings this fight to a standard 2v2. You have to wonder, Nano, when will you start to foot this one in? When will you provide Mamba with the bat now to potentially pull this one back into the smoke and even stick it out for the revive now that, yes, it is Nano who finishes the job.
Discount Preds, unfortunately, going down again. And while it is a night that should be challenging any caliber of team, Discount Preds certainly the ones that have been suffering quite a bit. Well, MZD, profiting time and time again, are doing exactly the same towards the northwestern side of the map.
MZD, they've been on fire all night long, and as we tune back into them here in Game 5, they already have 6 KP and are looking to add more. That's a Pathfinder, so I'm potentially thinking Luminosity ahead here, but granted, they found their way out. This is the perfect potential opportunity for a Wrecking Ball, but for now, they take their time. It's not Luminosity, it's Season.
And surprising me with that pullout of the Pathfinder as well. I know we questioned their use of the Bloodhound earlier, but Season's read on this meta is going back and forth, and so is this fight between MPS and Tech and the Sorcerers, with Pow Pow able to find the shield break. Can you chase onto the height without a Valkyrie? Right now, this engage is happening at the whim of Tech and his associated wizards, and it takes down Madness, leaving Pow Pow as the last member alive, with just a few meager fences to cover for him. Around comes that swing, and MPS go down with the vengeance of these magic-wielding crazy people taking them down. Mike and Ike slide in immediately after, cleaning up Yuban and taking out one crucial member of the Sorcerer's squad, but MPS don't live to see it.
I have to say, I mean, we could talk about zone, we could talk about end game play, but it just seems to be here in Cascades where everything is occurring. I do want to hide out our boy from Vex Gaming, Tyler, just wiping out that entire squad of Leave No Witness. So, you know, this is a little dab upon them there for Luminosity, just playing out the choke for now. They're able to find that initial knock onto, yes, American Dolbe, but they are technically in a 2v2 situation, if I'm correct.
Nice spin from Yanya. Should be enough to keep Luminosity in a commanding position from that actual point in ring as well. Luminosity have won several games in the Pro League, albeit not as a duo, but it is nice to see them passing by the Old Faithful position by that gravity cannon on the way into Barometer as Tyson lock down this building, or at least Stanky going to do so. The rest of the squad, Cody and Cruisen, actually out there poking out and seeing what they can do to Luminosity, while Razor sandwich in from the other side. A potential pinch coming in towards the southern side of Jurassic.
Now, I might be crazy there, but I'm seeing single individual members. That could be the remnants of American Dolbe trying to play it out in that cave system. For Razor, they don't even care. They're looking towards these next steps forwards in this zone, which finally we get to discuss is pulling towards that northern side of Barometer. We look towards positions like Razors, like Luminosities, especially in these endgames, if we are catering more towards that northeastern side. If not, the northwest is definitely a prime position for any one of our entities if it does seem to break out that way.
Oh god, I want to know what the next zone is so bad. I mean, just
okay,
unhinged zone pulls, yeah, right, that have happened recently, but right around, I want to say that western exit to Jurassic is where I would normally see this go, and I've just got no clue where it's going to be ending up these days. We know that Jurassic, it cannot end there.
Kicks.
Sorry?
Force 1 and kicks. I think this is the pull slightly towards the northern side of Barometer, where mostly where you see American Dolbe right now with Nasky. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. You're quite good at this game. Yeah, I should go buy a lottery ticket after this.
I have no life. That's what the true answer is. Spent a lot of time casting Apex.
Wow. These zones have really been messing with you recently, but I don't know, Zephyr. You're saving me a lot here, and I gotta say I appreciate it. Now, American Dolbe, unsaved for the moment, do need to find a way to pick up Oirain before we get into this last zone. We've seen their firepower really not surviving as they lose members, unlike, say, people like MZD that do tend to take those continually aggressive fights.
American Dolbe obviously have lost out on Tyler earlier, but managed to get the revive. In the meanwhile, Oijinen is pulled off, so constantly shuffling teams one by one. As a result, it's a major escape from Nasky for now, and a huge separation that is just barely missed out on by Mike and Ike. Now, clearly they're going to chase this one down. They know it's a single member, and Ordnance will be thrown back, and it doesn't find any damage, so this highlights potentially, yes, the end for Nasky.
Craft a bat, why don't you? You might need it as he gets away, or maybe doesn't. Right behind that tree, actually, the Prowlers will provide a surprising amount of cover as everybody's got to reset here. Tyson on the other side do collect that kill, however, and Nasky is completely finished off, bringing these two squads to a head with the Prowlers in between them, but a lot of tension in Jurassic right now, especially for Tyson, who will have to relocate right outside of it.
CLG, our team, currently in third with 53 overall. They were in major leads after their win, but still need to catch back up. But that's stunted Luminosity Jaguares to find those initial knocks. But Nano, always the savior of the CLG squad, to find the double return on Denizel and Jaguares. The revive is sticked, and all you can think of is what will Yanya do? Stuck behind the wall for now. Nano's looking low, but the entire team is here, Dia.
Yeah, looking good for CLG. And even Nano able to get all the way back up to topped up shields. Does have this high ground now to use, and the ring Zephyr, which at this point you can use as a source of pressure. It's pushing CLG into a position to get out over to the zone, but it's also crushing out their competition behind them. Luminosity, trying desperately to make it in, is still going to have to walk through Tyson to get there, and it's just Yanya left to try and carry that banner forward. Meanwhile, MZD are getting gate kept, and this could be deadly for them. They don't have a Valkyrie, and the Legend that we've seen save games so many times, their absence may be taking MZD out of this. Out goes the portal, but out goes Zach Mazer to follow it up immediately, not waiting for this mystical void to save them, and instead taking matters into his own hands as Designful, locked up against the rock, does go down, and it's CLG that watch it all happen.
I have to say, it's these chokes, especially when you're playing Edge, that come out of Jurassic that can be as punishing as what you saw there. For CLG, the redeploy back down towards our Bamboo Island finds them in the prime position to pick up one knock, one more to follow suit. Love the leap over Tyson to get the job done.
Beautiful way to finish that fight and execute Tyson summarily. CLG's rotation really did work out quite well. Now their rotation up through this island should be one that they can make with confidence, using specifically that Bangalore that you called out as we moved over into Stormpoint. The value of that pick going to be really evident as through all the open ground that they've got to traverse, Bangalore makes your survivability that much higher. And when we consider actually this ring that we're looking at and where the teams are positioned, nobody should even be looking at CLG.
Yeah, not at all here. I'm surprised we look towards who is still well within this lobby, and we cater more towards Tech and the Sorcerers once again. Our teams who found their success in our first iteration of Stormpoint are able to pull off a wonderful zone read here. Mike and Ike, though, one of those full three-man entities that, while they do play from Edge, given the fact that they have that kind of numbers advantage, are likely to walk into a win.
Slow and steady. That's got to be the plan for Mike and Ike. Right now, they cannot afford to force anything. It's better to make yourself, at this point, the least attractive target. With a couple squads that still need to reposition, Mike and Ike, wow, not only have the Valkyrie, but I was going to say have the Catalyst and the Maggie that could do very well. The fact that they're taking to the skies here is a little risky, I'll be honest.
We know for a fact that this building directly to the left of Yanya is available, but they don't. That would have been maybe one of the perfect positions to slowly walk your way in from. Instead, they opt for the first floor here, already starting to clutch up with some of those doors, but they lose out on Mr. Lemmy man in the meanwhile.
Unfortunately, Silent going to go down, and res should be easy, as remember, you do have that Catalyst that's propping up the doors for the moment, but losing a member of Mike and Ike on the way in only serves to further emphasize how scary that rotation truly was. Now, Tech and the Sorcerers are farming it up. CLG do go down, so that Bangalore not providing the value that I was expecting does end up meaning the end of another squad. And we're into the top 6, but not confidently. Lots of teams still to close in, and the zone gonna pull Mike and Ike out of their freshly acquired position.
It does look like American Dolbe can't survive any longer as the remnants that exist. It's going to be Tyler picked off in finality here. I like this from MJ, starting to get some early reads on these next rotations to play potentially either off a building height or to wipe what might be this next 3v3. They know for a fact if they don't clean it up here, they're going to suffer it on this next rotation. That's why you see the peaking beginning.
Just finished up with Luminosity, and Mike and Ike, knowing that they're in the top 4, can feel a lot more confident in this zone. Right now, you'd love to clear out the squad on top of you, because if you don't, if by some miracle both these teams survive, you're going to be going up against each other in a mere 30 seconds. Flank from Kicks makes that all the more difficult, though, and I love this wall from MJ to cut the fight in half. Out goes the nade. Stick is big onto Forsey. But Mike and Ike continue to play this defensive game, now down a Dark Veil, and with Wizard Coin still available on the flank.
I look at all of this and I worry for these teams because at the end of the day, we look more towards Tech and Sorcerer in
Nice take.
Season especially, who might do it. Hyde is taken, like you said, from Mike and Ike, but they still have yet to find the cracks that count. Instead, it's Silent who gets knocked as a result here, losing out on one, especially this late when Zone is already beginning to climb in. Means you're likely as a duo for the rest of the game.
That was such a nasty pump. I know that MJ didn't get to capitalize on it, but man, sliding around the corner with that PK, it is just so much confidence that you've got to get. Unfortunately, you lose a member for it, and with Silent down, Mike and Ike have very few options left. A duo that has lost the height advantage let themselves fall. Mike and Ike down. Nice nade. Could find purchase here. Not gonna get a knock, but Tech and the Sorcerers, I should say Sorcerer, just have 2 more squads to go through before they could grab their second win.
Noticeably, look at how close Season is working their way forward into Aegon by AOC here. Ari being pressured back against the wall. They'll face damage. It's Forcefoot to stick this battery for now, but you can see evidently where Season's focus is as we start to approach this final ring. Now, granted, I have to say, Season likely in that best spot when we talk about this next zone, especially given how little space Aegon has and the pole catering directly into the sight lines of Tech and Sorcerer here. So if they can retain a little bit of control, wait their time, they should be able to walk into a win after a confident 3v3.
Great spot from Aegon. The real worry out of this position is how you play around the boxes that Season have. The cover from them is actually so much better because Aegon are going to have to expose themselves to Tech. I'd like to see Aegon try and take onto the low ground and force a sandwich here, but we'll see what they end up doing, as Bangalore ult available could also buy them some unexpected space against both of these squads, perhaps even forcing Tech and the Sorcerers down underneath the bridge.
I know for a fact Tech and Sorcerer are at a disadvantage, but it's clear that they're going to provide some level of damage on one of these two teams, and that's going to be the big go button for the standard 3v3. Like you said, good move from Aegon to take to the low ground as they lose it out here. You can see Rut just trying to plan out when this Rolling Thunder needs to come through to level damage where it counts. Already being thrown out here and to join the rest of his team. They don't have height up against Season, but they're hoping that this missile barrage will find where it needs.
All you need to do is focus on not being the prime target. So often this is how it goes in endgames, and right now you've assured that Tech and Sorcerer cannot push you right now. That they're the ones that have the prime sightlines onto Season. Well, Season are very happy to farm you up on the low ground. Tech's doing the same thing. Great call from this Premier IGL as he drops down onto the low ground, letting this squad Aegon cook a little bit more before attracting any attention from Season, who are struggling to find them right now. Klein gets fried a little bit, but we've got a knock going down on the other side, and now Season have a difficult game to play. Can they prioritize Season? Can they prioritize Aegon on the other side? It's 2 duos that are going to be pinching in on them, but they outnumber you. Up to the ceiling climbs Tech, taking down Hakulo, and we're seeing Season lose control of this game with Bullet L chunked down to half health and taken down. It's Klein against the world, against these 2 duos who are vengeful from the bottom. Out comes the last shots, and Klein clutches up for Season in game number 5.
Season against all odds to defend 2 specific sightlines on opposite ends of zone are able to pick it up in a final 1v1v1 situation.
That's so ridiculous, Zephyr. It's so crazy that they were able to hold on to that, because at the moment that the sandwich worked, that you saw those pieces of bread coming together and smothering what Season had set up, you had an incredible amount of pressure on Season to perform well. Those knockdown shields, so often not enough. You've got no cover, and Tech and the Sorcerers and Aegon by AOC, they know what they're doing in those endgame scenarios.
It was the perfect timing too, especially when you look at Aegon by AOC. Now, granted, they were dropped kicks fairly early on, so it really was 2-2 on both sides, pinned for a standard 3 in the middle. And I feel like any other Any other team pressured by 4 separate entities from 2 rosters at the same time can't come out on top of it. And honestly, I myself, looking back at this, am still confused.
Now this game is the perfect example of why I thought they would farm today, because Season can crush in endgame scenarios when they are firing on all cylinders. I love the way that they hold each other up and can individually clutch at different moments, but this game really did come through for them. Plenty of kills, plenty of damage, and Season should be pushing themselves easily into a top 5 contenders position. We've got one more game left to go. For maybe a preview of that game and a breakdown of this one, let's hear from Yeso.
I'm just trying to catch my breath a little bit after that finish. Season with the victory here in Game 5. As Dia just pointed out, one more game to go here today, and still possibly some big moves to be made on that Mobile One leaderboard. But let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into our Mobile One high performance moment, and let's check out the clutch that finishes this game. We got a really good look with the patience of these teams at where everybody was set up. And it's initially Hack, stepping up with the R99, getting some damage, but going down. And now you've got Bullet L getting the knock, the finish, and the down. And now it's Klein versus the world on the edge of the zone, trying to finish one team. Aegon by AOC is done, and now expertly using the knock shields there to clean up the last player. And you can even see them coming up. It looks like they're going for possibly the melee finish. Of course, Klein fairly low at that moment, but it really comes down to a good job from Hack and Bullet L getting as much value as they can out of their lives, and then Klein just doing work here with the finish. Great beam on this first player, gets the finish on Aegon by AOC, and then just absolutely fries at the end to clean things up. And Klein, I mean, living up to his name, it is Klein's Season there at the end of that game. Season grabs the win. What a finish by them. Let's take a look at where they stand on our Mobile One leaderboard here. With that win, they jump up to 6th place, still with a considerable gap to go. So I would say unlikely that Season finishes in the top 5, 17 points between themselves and 5th place. MZD still sitting very comfortably up there. Tech and Sorcerer, though, getting things done. They're now ahead of CLG by a singular point. So very much a battle for 2nd place here. LG 4 points behind Tech and Sorcerer. So CLG and LG in prime position to try and make something happen here in this last game. MZD likely feeling comfortable, though Tech and Sorcerer can threaten them. If MZD goes out early in this game, the door becomes wide open for these teams if they have a pop-off performance in game number 6. Meanwhile, Aegon by AOC with one of their better games of the day. Unfortunately, sitting on the side of the leaderboard they don't want to be on. Tyson, Mike, and Ike, though, have been pretty solid today. They're inside the top 10 so far. We're finishing off Apex Legends here in Mike and Ike week after this, Game 6, when we return.
When the chicken is this crispy and this tasty, it doesn't matter what else is for dinner. Tyson Crispy Strips are so delicious, they'll be your favorite part of every meal. More crispy chicken, more family faves, more to love. Tyson.
I gotta say, guys, I was spitting out some mad Lady Gaga references behind the scene, but I can't repeat them here for copyright reasons. So, Zephyr, we're about to jump into Game 6, and while I'll try desperately to come up with more on the desk, we've got some Apex Legends to cover. We have got a new season to round out, and we have got a winner to crown for this day of Season 6.
Yes, Season 6 to come to its completion alongside Season 16's first tournament here. We've seen everything and more out of so many of these rosters tonight, and to be honest, I've learned almost absolutely nothing from it to carry forward towards the rest of my cast. Granted, I think I'm better off sitting down with Raven this weekend than I am potentially looking at this.
This is, it's teams experimenting, right? And I like that we're getting a sense of what people feel is strong, what a player's initial inclinations are, because it is nice to see that instinct at work. It's what's gotten so many people here on what is a very young scene so far. What you feel as a professional player does actually tend to have a lot of correlation to what's strong, just because of how impactful it is when you are feeling yourself, when you're honestly looking good on stage. We're seeing it on Pathfinder already, and while I am seriously doubting Pathfinder's viability on a professional level, looks awesome here. It's looked really, really good. Of course, with that one game left, we've also seen a lot of Bangalore come back, and while we saw Caustic take a severe uptick on World's Edge, I do wonder whether we see the same thing with Bangalore for Game 6.
That's me winking, saying that Bangalore is totally going to be on Stormpoint. I already posted on Reddit that I think Bangalore is going to be Stormpoint meta about 15 minutes ago. So the meta is being written as we speak.
What do you think's happening with Gibraltar here, Zephyr? Just entertain me for a minute. What's happening with Gibraltar? Why aren't we seeing him, especially now that support as a class is quite good?
Well, I want to point out that you're not just not seeing Gibraltar. Notably, you're not really seeing support, right? No lifelines. Loba's minimal, I think maybe one, and the Newcastle's one as well here. It's clear to me that these legends evidently, obviously, haven't faced the same buffs necessary to put them back in the limelight, and while they're still impressionable, most teams aren't interested in having the prowess of support alongside them. And granted, it does make sense. I had this discussion with so many people here. I think, outside of very unique situations, these classes are only evident in the early game and mid. So, support, maybe not as valuable. Speaking of support, though, Aegon could really use one right about now as well. Maybe not anymore.
The Kraken's lair, taking him down again. That's the last time we're going to see it today.
All right, Horizon.
I don't even know. I don't even know if that was a proper Horizon impression, but it is another loss, unfortunately, for one of our partnered squads. And Kraken's lair have proven to be no joke down here by Cenote.
Ooh. Do you know what happens when I see a zone like this?
Hot dog?
Hot dog! I get to talk about, and for all of you who don't know what the hot dog is, look where Klain is right now. We get 3 buildings in a row, and I like to classify them as the 2 buns in my very, very weird and oblong-shaped hot dog in the middle there. Typically, we do see zone pull up towards this northern side and finish off in this region where you usually get a spread of 3, sometimes 4 teams within our hot dog buildings.
Have you seen those memes, Zephyr, where there's pictures of like medieval art and cats drawn in them, and it's like, have you ever seen a cat? Well, yeah, of course I have. Look at it. Here's a cat here. I drew it. That's what I get when you talk about hot dogs. You're like, oh yeah, that looks exactly like a hot dog, and I'm like, this man's never seen a hot dog in his life.
I see 3 things in a row, and I'm like, that's a hot dog.
Yeah, that's just it.
That's the main qualifier.
You're looking at the Beatles Abbey Road cover, and you're going, that must be what a sandwich looks like.
While I may be confused about sandwiches and other pre-fetted goods, Razor's fight here looks more than successful against Team Sung. They are losing out on some major health on Borton and B, but the falling PK shot from Borton, it leaves me relieved.
No time left on your lease on life, Team Sung. unfortunately down and out for our last game. They'll have to watch how this final round of Series E kicks off. Team Inferno taking their fight off way out in the north with a nice flank by Cryptic. It's Sorcerer that goes down, and that's a sick headshot to follow it up as well. 2R1C bite the dust while this fight is happening. And Cryptic still playing around the sides here, is looking for an angle in. Wrecking Ball causes some problems, but a nice Sentinel shot. This guy is just unhinged. Zansuki late on the run-up, though, means that he misses out on the 1v2, and it's going to turn into a 1v1 at the end. Can he clutch up in the same way that Cryptic can? Or is Team Inferno's run about to be over? Wingman shots whip, but a 45 on white gives you a lot of confidence. Out comes the Prowler. Close range. Send it over and into the slide. There goes the Wraith, but the follow-up should be swift and deadly. Door close cannot keep you out forever. Knock in those doors. Zansuki takes blood from Drug Free.
I have to say, Dia, I was clutching my chest that entire time, hoping, praying that this fight was not lost for Team Inferno, because actually Cryptic went insane there at the very beginning with the Sentinel. It is not often you get to see the success of that explicit weapon.
Yeah, this is, I mean, a weapon that got a little bit of favor last patch. Yeah, but like you're saying, it is one of the things that actually, well, we'll have to talk about it later. Kraken's Lair. They are looking to take a fight. They're not actually going to find this, but do get flesh ticks up in the sky. They don't have a whole lot of chase potential here, not without the Valkyrie ult to follow it up. And Kraken's Lair, I suppose, will be picking up scraps instead of farming Team Intel.
Jet there will be able to recover, even though finding the majority of the damage upon themselves. And granted, it makes me a little sad, Dia. We talk about the incursion of Stormpoint at the very beginning and the IMC armories themselves as they impacted that a specific season. Notably, you know, they made major changes to make sure that you really can't hold them down. There are teams that have in the past done great jobs at locking down IMC armies, but it's so hard to do so that you see moments like what we just saw from Intel take place so frequently.
I think we really do. Now the movement up towards Cascade by a lot of teams, surprisingly not as traffic heavy as I would have expected. Instead, we're seeing that northern end really start to clump together. 4 squads in the space of about 200 meters, make it 5 actually, as MPS show up. I mean, we're going to be losing at least some of them. Bullet L bites the dust, and MPS continuing on the run right now. Look for the end of SZN, our winners from last game, now taken down and even missing out on the placement points from this one.
Oof. A rough position to be in if you're SCN. For MPS, they needed a big game if they want to catch up or even put them in a place of prizing here for tonight. For Shubi, Madness, and Pow Pow, they've got minor portals set up, but they seem to be one of those squads that are just going to be left defending this choke. And granted, being early to defend this choke doesn't seem like the best of things here for this roster. And at the end of the day, as the zone likely continues to pull towards that northern side, we know for a fact that there are 6-7 squads who already host a position there.
Yeah, this is MPS's, I suppose, plan B as they move through the opposite choke, saying, well, we, like you, Zephyr, have sort of sniffed out, even without our view from above, that there are too many squads in that area. Mike and Ike, though, populating a spot that we don't see really used that often. Their edge position should let them get some kills, but in this particular case, not a whole lot of time for them to use. There we go. Ring console going to be popped, and this is why Mike and Ike stuck around. They've still got that Valkyrie to relocate as well, so looking for some kills while they're around, but Mike and Ike don't need to risk too much because their plan does involve a spot that's nice and cozy in the zone later, more than it does taking down Discount Preds.
Woo. Discount Preds to the low for now. Now, granted, the furthest position away here on the East Lift, it doesn't seem like they're going to have the best moves for it because, granted, there's another squad sitting right ahead of you on the choke as well. And if you're Discount Preds, you're sitting here wondering, why is there 3 squads set up over here? Not just one from above, but also Luminosity down here towards the south side. Preds will be inevitably eliminated, and instead, we're left to ponder it on our own.
Luminosity likely on the disengage here. They've played enough at the pro level to know that your probability of taking a fight up against a squad on this high ground, not very high. Mike and Ike will get the majority of this loot as a result, but Luminosity will get the first rotate in and actually maybe, try and take away some of that high ground. I love this move.
Instantaneous height retakes. We talk about disengage. Well, we're just wrong as it can be. It was just a moment of regrouping for the Luminosity roster to get their next best position forward. There is an exhibit down left to play into here. Now, granted, they don't spy anything off of it, and I think Luminosity, all they did was just spook them.
Now, Luminosity have separated the squad, if I'm reading this situation correctly. Jaguares actually eats some damage from behind and has to drop down, but I misread it. It's Team Inferno that are coming in. What did you say about that? How are there 3 squads here? Zephyr, how are there 4 squads here?
This is a zone that finishes on the opposite side of the map. And granted, Zone 2, you're not going to be taking much damage out in that storm, but granted, I just genuinely don't understand. For Inferno, big wins in High Point for themselves, might be feeling what is this aggressive tendency coming off of that start.
Now Team Inferno really looking for those points, as this is what we see in things like game number 6. They've got time to rotate in, but Mike and Ike could not possibly be going for that banner recovery. There's no way that that's what the plan is right now. There's just 10 seconds left on this ring close, and being hit by the beacon on the way up as well is just devastating for MJ.
Rough there. Banner to likely not be recovered. And this is one of those moments where I do kind of go, imagine if you did have support, right? It's no worries, especially this early in the game, but instead, we won't be seeing it right now. For Razor to defend this choke on the south side, teams obviously making their way in. For Leave No Witnesses, faring the brunt of that damage, they still come out on top. Our friends from South America keep the south of the map alive.
Panic horrifically low after that play as well. Just barely standing, but is going to be able to heal up and think about their next move in. Now, in a position like this, Leave No Witnesses can play much safer than the squad that preceded them, maybe even dropping down onto the low ground with the Watson fences to keep themselves alive. So they got very little to fear here, barring a squad sneaking up on them, and their plans do have to take into account their next moves in the, well, I'll call it a couple 4 minutes away. Luminosity are going to be rocking up on this. Remember, no seer for the foreknowledge, but Luminosity have heard the shots and do get that initial crack as a result. Leave No Witnesses now on the back foot, get to make use of their defensive prowess if they want to pile into that low ground together. Off they've gone, Yanya taking the flank. Are we going to do this, or will Luminosity be punished?
Here's the thing, that's the worry. I mean, perfect setup here. Jaguares and Nizel will likely push into this, but they realize quickly that they're not in as much of an advantage as they thought, and no one was dropping towards that low ground. Yanya, though, being on this Valkyrie, leaves the flexibility to put themselves right back up on top to continue applying pressure. Panic will immediately fall as a result, and Yanya from behind will find that following knock and the elimination of Leave No Witnesses.
It feels bad for Leave No Witnesses, but they did it to themselves with that defensive play, trying to sit back on the high ground as opposed to opting into the low where they have a lot more flexibility with the Wraith. It may not seem nice then, but setting up on height really did take them down in the face of a squad that was more prepared than they were. Now, American Dalbay, who have struggled on Storm Point, giving us a different look here as they try and wrap around for their next engagement. Oirain could go down, but whips out that Eva just in time to find what I'm looking at as the full thirst and a quick shield swap for the following kills.
An immediate success for American Doughblade might be followed by their end, but instead it is a wipe onto Tyson. They push themselves from 2 KP to 5 as we breach our halfway point of squads remaining. Neski's got that pylon down for some minor recovery there, but they want to put themselves back in this building exclusively. We talk about zone ending as we do start to look at this particular poll here. It does seem to be a little bit more of a split between the trench lines and my hot dog favorite down there towards the south.
MZD and MPS are out as well. A very big shift up in the way that this endgame should play. Luminosity may be able to pick up their second win as a result. They haven't got one since our last game on World's Edge. Can they clutch up as the Pro League team in our last game on Stormpoint? The rotation in is going to have to be perfect as they make their way through these Watson fences, but still will be making it to zone in time.
Now, obviously, the major emphasis put towards teams that haven't been able to survive, because 7 squads remaining on a round 3 close is, I mean, that's abysmal. That is a extremely high-paced lobby, and it's something that allows Luminosity to get away with this rotation in comparison to most endgames where you would not. And also, notably, pick up that KP on MG in the meanwhile. We are literally down to 6 squads remaining on a round 3 close. There's more than enough space.
There certainly is. I don't know if they're going to make use of it, because these teams do seem real bloodthirsty, but I got to agree with you, Zephyr. You have got so much opportunity to maneuver. Kraken's Lair maybe overextending even on this height, and almost losing Doc as the shields get nearly broken. Expending as many resources as you can right now to take space is so important, but CLG, they're pushed into a corner, trying to make their way through just off to the south of where we saw Luminosity earlier. They're being gatekept by not just one squad, but many as they try and push through this absolutely fogged up choke point.
Woo! It's a shame for Luminosity. It looked like a solid game for them, and now it's left up to just one to pull it off. Nizel will be inevitably picked by Mamba, and as we bring ourselves down to 5, I can't imagine CLG are faring much better. It looks like Tech and Sorcerer on the direct other end of this fight, and while they will have more time to recover here, they are still stuck.
They certainly are. Tech and Sorcerers do slide their they slide their way around this building. I don't know what their actual game plan will be for the end game, because that stuckness that you're talking about, unfortunately for their specific composition, isn't going to go away. They don't have the Bangalore. They don't have any of that long-range cover. The only relocation tool they've got is a Valkyrie, and in a zone like this, even landing in a bunker can easily get you capitalized on when a Valkult is quite easily intercepted by anyone and everyone.
We do look at this zone, and it is going to be making its way back towards that trench line like we were discussing. Notably, I want to point out that American Double's position is still well and proper, especially in regards to this zone, but even still, they've actually made their way more appropriately down into these trenches. I don't know if I particularly like that. It is a question of survivability. It's usually the team that manages to make the successful rotation, hold height above the trench line, that finds some success. But you can clearly see 2 squads to the northern ends. It leads to reason why American are in this position. Missed information we didn't get to see.
And as a team in the top 5 as well, points are really what they're trying to farm. Because they are so close, even a second with a decent amount of KP that they already have, by the way, could very well push them up into the top 3. Their survival should be a natural consequence of this next ring close, because nobody should be looking to push them. As I say that, Styx actually extending quite far forward and down onto this low ground, attracting the attention of Kraken's Lair and really opening up the sight lines for American Dolbe, who push out and quite naturally are going to try and punish this.
Obviously, for Kraken's Lair, this kind of high ground angle is something that we would have hoped American Doble were able to hold on to, but instead, no, they've got to find some sort of response in tow. Now, granted, next zone does leave them in a position where they're not going to have to worry about a rotation for now, but, I mean, it's going to be one of those first spots to lose its access.
CLG's movement through this smoke, really nice so far, but Mamba goes low, does have a little bit of cover on the low ground, but look at this continued pressure that they are applying, not allowing the rotation in that we saw earlier, initiated by Styx, to work out. It's American Dolbe on one side and CLG on the opposite, continuing to just relentlessly pressure you forward. Now Tech on the flank does almost end up finding a decent amount of damage,
hey,
actually.
hey.
With now that Tech's actually involved, it's
Hamlock.
working, as it was just Tech and the Sorcerer specifically, to lay it out. Yuban healing up for now, does swap out with Tech, G7 in hand, but the Bangalore really providing a lot of value right now, as everyone's managed to stay alive. That space that you were talking about, Zephyr, really coming in clutch.
I have to say, for Tech and Sorcerer, a team that has thoroughly impressed me tonight, through and through. I mean, really keeping up with some of the best in this lobby, and maybe in the position to hold on to that height. It's going to come potentially at the price of winning out against CLG, because this next zone will pay. Just above, though, they've got what might be the last minutes of American Doughboy. They did take their successful fight against Team Revenge, but Tech and Sorcerer, I mean, they know immediately what needs to happen. Woodrain will take to the high ground for now and still keep the dreams alive of American Doughboy, but it's likely that it won't last much longer. By the way, I
How
think
on
that's
earth is Oirein alive?
I think that's the proper pronunciation, by the way. That's a Russian word.
Oh,
Doughboy.
interesting.
Yeah. I looked it up, I think, in game 3 or 4. For those of you at home, enjoy looking that up on your own time. It means exactly what you probably think it does.
Gobbledygook? I don't know.
No.
All right, fair enough.
Reuter's having some fun tricks on all of us right now.
All right. Well, I look forward to Googling it in my free time later and being absolutely horrified at what I've been saying on broadcast. But CLG, they're living in a world of their own right now, and I may as well sing their praises. Shy, again, being able to dip in and out of that smoke, specifically using the Seer, is just such a good advantage for this squad. Tech and the Sorcerers do go down. Oirein actually playing a crucial part in their elimination, so living into the top 3 before he is very quickly taken
CLG
down, and it's Kraken versus CLG. With CLG controlling the high ground, you do have to imagine this is going in their favor, and it would be their second win of the day. They would be the only team to win twice, but could Kraken rise from the grave? They are getting gunned down out of it. Nano is just decimating with the G7 from a distance, and it's he and Shy against the Kraken, and the Kraken is taken down. That is CLG for the win in game number 6.
We talk about CLG success, baby. In previous weeks, they were some of the best competing teams in this lobby here in week 6 and 7, literally in that top 2 respectively, and will, well, probably finish at the tip of the top here tonight as well. And honestly, to say I'm surprised would be a complete lie.
Yeah, this is a team that actually I was really hoping would adapt well. It occurred to me as we were loading into that second game of World's Edge when I saw the Caustic, I was like, oh yeah, CLG are one of those teams that really likes experimenting with different legend picks, and it worked out in their favor because they've got that, not just experimental mentality, but comfortability with being uncomfortable. When they are trying something new, because they do it so often, CLG clearly were not hit as hard by the fact that everything's changed moving into Season 16, and it looked really good for them.
I mean, it leaves me excited, especially for North America as a whole here. I mean, this is just an inkling of what there is, especially in the face, as we will start catering towards Split 2 of Pro League once we approach March and truly get some understanding of what teams hoist ahead.
Yes, we will, Zephyr. Yes, we will. We're taking a look at CLG right now. Mamba cranking in the last game of the day. 2k damage and 6 kills. But Nano and Shy not slouching either. Really able to lay in the damage, the supporting damage, I'll say, from afar, because Mamba was truly the star of that game, at least in the KDA. Really impressive performance from CLG to close out the day, following up with their great moves over at Climatizer. I think that they've obviously got a head start on the league, but as you talked about, it's given me hope, and it's hopefully given a lot of other teams inspiration as to what they can look to try out in this upcoming, or rather, current season of Apex Legends.
Well, a props to CLG here. It's something that likely puts them potentially at the top of our final leaderboard, especially off of a not just solid win, but a major win like that.
Yeah, super nice stuff from them, and honestly, I gotta give a big thank you to all of the squads that came out tonight and showed us what their read on Season 16 was. It is a blast here at Mike and Ike Week in Season 6 of Series E. Thank you all for tuning in, but now it's time to hand it over to Yeso to really close us out.
A win on World's Edge, a win on Storm Point, and really the only question remaining is, will CLG get the win overall here today? But a wonderful way to close things out. Mamba with a shining performance in that final game. Of course, Nano and Shy backing things up, rounding out the squad, but a really good way to end out this week of Apex Legends action here for Mike and Ike Week. Well played from them. Let's take a look, though, at our final Mobile One high performance moment here for tonight's competition. And I imagine probably going to be another look at CLG because they looked really good in this final game. And it is. It's going to be the finish here. Nano laying down the damage, that 2-4 on the G7, doing work as Mamba up in their grill, just shredding these final three players. And it's just a good job of the teamwork here. Nano in a very safe position, not missing almost any shots. Mamba up there in that close range with the car. Shy up in the mix as well. Of course, Mamba going down, but Nano and Shy easily able to clean up this last player in the 2v1 and grab the win. And CLG with just a textbook, well-played team finish there for the win in game number 6. And the real question is, as I already said, they got 2 wins, one on World's Edge, one on Storm Point. Do they take the overall win tonight? Our Mobile One leaderboard has the answer for you. Let's check it out. It is going to be CLG. The big finish from them passes up MZD. They hit 83 points. They take the W, and that's what I was talking about, right? Very hard to do when MZD had the solid lead they had, but you know, if there's a stumble, if they fall out early in a game, the door comes wide open. And that gap was not as large as it needed to be with one game remaining, right? It wasn't insurmountable, and CLG did exactly what they needed to do to grab the victory. They hit that 80-point threshold. They pass up MZD. They grab the win. Tech and Sorcerer with a really good back half of the day. Games 3 through 6, really good for Tech and Sorcerer. They were fairly quiet early on World's Edge, but they finished strong. Storm Point was really good for them, of course, grabbing a victory. They finish in 3rd place to round out that top 3. Well done to CLG. Well done to all of our teams here in Mike and Ike Week here at Series E Apex Legends. That's going to do it for us tonight, folks. A reminder, of course, we wrap up the week with Thursday and Friday night action. Guilty Gear Strive tomorrow, Multiverses on Friday. So if you have a love for FGC and some platform fighters, make sure you're around the next couple of afternoons, as I'll be here to break everything down and host a couple of great tournaments for you all. But that does it for us tonight. Big thanks to Dia and Zephyr. Wonderful as always on the cast, and a shout out to our great production team. For myself, the entire live broadcast crew, though, and everybody here at Esports Arena, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Big thank you as always to our friends at Mike and Ike and all of our partners here at Series E, and we will see you folks here tomorrow.